The shotgun blast shattered the midnight silence as Anna Whitfield stood between an angry mob and the only man who'd shown her kindness since her husband died. "The next one finds flesh, she shouted into the torch-lit darkness, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. Just 3 months ago, she'd been a respectable widow with nowhere to go. Now she was defending a rancher who'd whispered the only words that mattered, "Stay with me." How did a grieving woman cast out into a Wyoming blizzard end up here ready to kill or die for a love she never expected? My friends settle in for a tale of survival, scandal, and second chances in the unforgiving American West. And wherever you're watching from, Denver, Dallas, or Detroit, drop your city in the comments below. I'd love to know how far this story travels tonight. The funeral had been 3 days ago, but Anna Whitfield could still taste the dirt from Thomas's grave on her lips. December wind howled through the gaps in the Whitfield family home, a home that was no longer hers, as her brother-in-law Samuel had made abundantly clear that very morning. "Pack your things," he'd said, not even looking up from his breakfast. "You've got until noon." Anna stood in what had been her kitchen for 4 years, watching Samuel's wife Martha fuss over the stove. Her stove where Anna had cooked countless meals for Thomas during his long illness. Her hands unconsciously went to the worn wooden counter where she'd kneaded bread every Monday, where Thomas would sit and watch her work even when the consumption had stolen most of his strength. "Samuel, please," Anna said quietly. "It's only been 3 days. I have nowhere—" "Should have thought of that before Thomas got sick." Samuel interrupted, finally meeting her eyes with a cold stare. "4 years of marriage and no children. No point keeping you around now that he's gone. You're 26 years old, young enough to find work somewhere." "In December," Anna's voice cracked, "with winter coming on hard." Martha turned from the stove, her expression a mixture of pity and relief. "There's talk of work in Cheyenne. Maybe someone needs a housemaid or what, Martha?" Anna's grief suddenly flared into anger. "Or a saloon girl, is that what you think I should become?" Samuel slammed his coffee cup down. "Watch your tongue, woman. You're lucky we're giving you until noon. Thomas might have been soft on you, but I've got my own family to think about. This ranch barely supports us as it is." That was a lie, and they all knew it. The Whitfield Ranch was one of the most prosperous in the county, with over 300 head of cattle and good water rights. But Anna had no claim to any of it. Thomas had been too sick to think about wills or provisions, and by Wyoming law, everything went to his next of kin, his brother. Anna climbed the narrow stairs to the room she'd shared with Thomas, each step feeling like a goodbye. The bed was still unmade from 3 nights ago when she'd finally collapsed after watching them lower his pine coffin into the frozen ground. She could still smell him on the pillows, that mixture of tobacco and leather, and something uniquely Thomas that no amount of sickness could erase. Her hands shook as she pulled out the old carpet bag from under the bed. Thomas had bought it for her on their wedding day, joking that it was for all the adventures they'd have together. 4 years, and the farthest they'd traveled was to Bitter Creek for supplies. She packed mechanically 2 dresses, both patched and worn. Her mother's Bible, its leather cover cracked with age. A daguerreotype of Thomas, from before he got sick when his cheeks were still full and his eyes bright. The silver hairbrush that had been her wedding gift from him. $3.47 she'd saved from selling eggs. Samuel didn't know about that money hidden in an old sock. As she folded her brown wool dress, the one Thomas had said brought out the amber in her eyes, she heard horses outside. Through the frost-covered window, she saw 3 riders approaching. Her heart sank as she recognized the lead rider, Judge Clayton, from town with his sons, Frank and Walter. She could hear Samuel's voice through the floor, suddenly jovial. "Judge Clayton, what brings you out in this weather?" "Came to pay our respects, Samuel, and to discuss some business." Anna pressed her ear to the floor, her pulse quickening. "About the widow," Judge Clayton continued. "Frank here has taken an interest. Has he now—" Samuel's voice carried a calculating tone Anna knew too well. "She's young, healthy, proven she can keep house. Frank's willing to take her off your hands. Might even throw in those 2 breeding mares you've been eyeing." Anna's blood turned to ice. Frank Clayton was 43 years old with hands that wandered and breath that reeked of whiskey by noon. His first wife had died under mysterious circumstances, and the second had run off in the night, leaving everything behind rather than stay another day under his roof. "Well now," Samuel said slowly, That's a generous offer, Judge. When would Frank want to? Anna didn't wait to hear more. She grabbed her carpet bag, threw her heavy cloak around her shoulders, and crept down the back stairs. The kitchen was empty. Martha had gone to the front room to serve the men coffee. Anna paused at the door, looking one last time at the home she was leaving. On impulse, she grabbed a loaf of bread from the counter and shoved it into her bag. The back door creaked as she opened it, and she froze waiting. But the men's laughter from the front room covered the sound. She slipped out into the yard, staying close to the wall until she reached the barn. Thomas's horse, Dusty, nickered softly when he saw her. "Can't take you, boy," she whispered, pressing her face against his warm neck. "They'd hang me for a horse thief." Instead, she headed for the road on foot, pulling her cloak tight against the rising wind. Snow had started to fall, fat flakes that would soon become a blizzard. She could smell it in the air. But she'd rather face a Wyoming winter than Frank Clayton's bed. She walked for 2 hours before she heard the horses behind her. "Anna?" Samuel's voice carried over the wind. "Anna, get back here." She didn't turn around, just walked faster, her boots slipping on the ice-slicked road. The horses surrounded her quickly. Samuel, Frank Clayton, and Walter, all looking down at her with varying degrees of annoyance and amusement. "This is foolishness," Samuel said. "Get up behind me and we'll discuss this at home." "It's not my home anymore," Anna said, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "You made that clear." Frank Clayton nudged his horse closer. "Now, Mrs. Whitfield, soon to be Mrs. Clayton, there's no need for dramatics. Your brother-in-law and I have come to an arrangement that benefits everyone." "Everyone except me." Frank's friendly mask slipped. "A widow with no money and nowhere to go doesn't have the luxury of being particular. You should be grateful." "Grateful?" Anna laughed, and it sounded wild, even to her own ears. "I buried my husband 3 days ago, and you're already dividing me up like property." "You are property," Walter said with a smirk. "Or near enough. What else you got to offer besides—" Walter, Judge Clayton warned, but his son just shrugged. Anna looked at each of them in turn. These men who thought they could decide her fate like she was cattle to be sold. Something inside her, something that had been dormant during Thomas's long illness, suddenly roared to life. "I choose the road," she said simply, and started walking again. Frank grabbed her arm from horseback, nearly pulling her off her feet. "You don't get to choose anything, woman." Anna wrenched free so violently that Frank had to grab his saddle horn to keep from falling. "Touch me again, and I'll make sure everyone in Bitter Creek knows exactly what happened to your first wife." The color drained from Frank's face. "You don't know anything about that." "Don't I? Thomas was the sheriff?" Then remember, he kept very detailed notes. It was a bluff Thomas had suspected but never proved anything. But Frank didn't know that. "You're making a mistake," Samuel said, his voice hard. "Walk away now, and you're walking away from everything. No help, no references, nothing. You'll be dead in a week." "Then that's my choice to make." She turned and kept walking her back straight despite the weight of their stares. She heard Frank cursing, Samuel arguing, but gradually the voices faded as the snow began falling harder. By the time full dark came, she could barely see 10 feet ahead. The road had disappeared under a blanket of white, and the wind cut through her cloak like knives. Her feet had gone numb an hour ago, and she'd eaten the bread, but it sat like lead in her stomach. She stumbled over something, a rock maybe, or a frozen rut, and went down hard, her carpetbag flying from her numb fingers. She tried to get up, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. The snow was soft, almost warm compared to the wind. It would be so easy to just rest for a moment. "Thomas," she whispered to the darkness. "I'm sorry." "I tried." She thought she heard horses again, but that was impossible. Samuel wouldn't come after her, not in this storm. Her eyes drifted closed. The last thing she remembered was strong hands lifting her, a voice cutting through the wind. "Easy now, I've got you." Then warmth, blessed warmth, and darkness. Anna woke to the sound of a fire crackling and the rich smell of coffee. For a moment she thought she was home, that Thomas would walk through the door any moment with wood for the stove. Then memory crashed back and she sat up with a gasp. "Whoa there," a deep voice said. "Take it slow." She was in a cabin, not the Whitfield house, somewhere smaller, simpler. Heavy quilts covered her, and she realized with a start that she was wearing only her chemise and petticoats under them. Her dress hung by the fire, steaming slightly. A man sat in a chair by the fireplace, and Anna's first thought was that he looked like he'd been carved from the same wood as the cabin walls, all weathered planes and solid strength. Gray threaded through his dark hair, and his eyes were the color of winter sky. He was older than her, maybe 35 or 40, with the kind of stillness that came from spending more time with horses than people. "Who are you?" Her voice came out as a croak. "Luke Harrison." He stood and poured coffee from a pot on the stove, moving with an economy of motion that suggested a man used to taking care of himself. "You were about frozen solid when I found you. Another hour and—" He shrugged, handing her the cup. "Drink this. It'll help warm you from the inside." The coffee was black and bitter and the best thing she'd ever tasted. "My things? Your bag's there by the bed. Everything's safe." He returned to his chair, giving her space. "You want to tell me what a woman was doing alone in that storm?" Anna wrapped her hands around the cup, searching for words. "My husband died. His family. I had nowhere to go." Luke nodded as if that explained everything. "Maybe in Wyoming it did." "The storm's not letting up anytime soon," he said. "You're welcome to stay until it passes." "I can't pay you." "Didn't ask for payment." He stood pulling on a heavy coat. "I need to check on the horses. There's stew on the stove, help yourself. And Miss—" He paused at the door. "Whatever you're running from, it can't follow you here, not through this storm." After he left, Anna sat in the silence, trying to make sense of her situation. She should be afraid alone in a stranger's cabin with no one knowing where she was. But there'd been something in Luke Harrison's manner, a careful respect in the way he'd kept his distance that eased her fear. She rose on shaky legs and ladled stew into a bowl. It was simple fare: venison, potatoes, onions, but her stomach cramped with hunger at the first bite. When had she last eaten a real meal? The days since Thomas's death had blurred together. As she ate, she studied the cabin. It was spare but clean, everything in its place. No woman's touch anywhere, no curtains, no tablecloth, no attempts at decoration. But there were books on a shelf surprising her. She stood to look closer. Shakespeare, Emerson, a worn Bible, and several novels she didn't recognize. The door opened in a swirl of snow, and Luke stomped in, shaking white from his shoulders. "Storm's getting worse," he said. "We're locked in for a few days at least." He must have seen something in her expression because he added, "There's a foreman's cabin about 50 yards east. I can bunk there if it makes you more comfortable." "In this storm? That's foolish." "Maybe. But I know what people say about situations like this." Anna laughed bitterly. "My reputation is already ruined. The moment I walked away from my brother-in-law's house, I became a fallen woman in the eyes of Bitter Creek." Luke hung his coat and hat carefully. "Bitter Creek, that's Judge Clayton's town." "You know him, know of him, and his boys." Luke's expression darkened. "They cause you trouble." "Frank wanted to acquire me, like I was livestock." Luke made a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. "That sounds like Frank Clayton. Man thinks everything's for sale." "Everything is, apparently. Except me." "Good for you." They sat in silence for a while, the fire popping and the wind howling outside. It should have been awkward, but somehow it wasn't. There was something restful about Luke Harrison's presence, like he didn't need words to fill spaces. "You live here alone?" Anna finally asked. "Have for 10 years. Run about 60 head of cattle, some horses. It's not much, but it's mine." "No family." "Had a wife once. She died." The words were flat, final, discouraging further questions. Anna understood that kind of pain, the kind that made words inadequate. "I'm sorry," she said simply. He nodded, acknowledging the sympathy without inviting more. As the evening wore on, exhaustion pulled at Anna again. Luke noticed her drooping eyelids. "Take the bed," he said. "I'll bed down by the fire." "I can't take your bed." "You can and you will. You're still recovering from nearly freezing to death. Arguments can wait until you're stronger." Too tired to protest further, Anna crawled under the quilts. They smelled of wood smoke and leather, and something else, safety, maybe. For the first time since Thomas had started coughing blood, she felt protected. She woke once in the night to hear Luke adding wood to the fire, moving quietly to avoid disturbing her. Through barely open eyes, she watched him return to his makeshift bed on the floor, saw him pull a rifle close before settling in, guarding her even in sleep. The storm raged for 3 more days. They fell into an easy rhythm. Luke would tend the animals while Anna cooked and cleaned, though he protested she didn't need to earn her keep. But she needed to be useful, needed to feel like more than a burden. On the second day, she found him mending a bridle and asked if he had other tack that needed repair. He brought her a pile of leather goods, and she set to work with needle and thread from her bag. Her fingers remembered the familiar motions from years of maintaining Thomas's equipment. "You're good at that," Luke observed, watching her work. "Thomas taught me. Said a rancher's wife should know how to care for everything on the ranch." "Smart man." "He was." Anna's throat tightened. "Even at the end, when the consumption had him so weak he couldn't stand, he was still trying to teach me things. Like he knew he was leaving you alone in a hard world." Anna nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Luke rose and busied himself at the stove, giving her time to compose herself. When he returned, he handed her a cup of coffee, just the way she'd come to like it, 1 spoon of sugar if they were feeling luxurious. "Tell me about him," Luke said quietly. "If you want." So she did. She told him about meeting Thomas at a dance when she was 22, how he'd been the deputy, then all swagger and smiles, how he'd courted her properly, even asked her father's permission, though her father had been dead 2 years, how their wedding was small but perfect with wildflowers she'd picked herself. She talked about the good years when Thomas was healthy and they'd planned for children that never came, about the first signs of sickness, just a cough that wouldn't go away, the doctor from Cheyenne who'd pronounced it consumption and given them 6 months, how Thomas had fought for 2 years, instead getting smaller and weaker, but never losing his sweetness. He apologized, she said, staring into her coffee. "At the end, for leaving me with nothing, for not being strong enough. Can you imagine the man was dying and he was apologizing to me? He loved you. Yes, and I loved him. But love doesn't pay debts or buy food or keep roofs over heads." "No," Luke agreed. "It doesn't." On the 3rd night, Luke told her about his wife, Sarah, how she'd come from back east full of ideas about the romantic West, how the isolation had slowly driven her mad until one winter she'd walked out into a blizzard while he was tending cattle. He'd found her 3 days later frozen like a statue reaching toward the east. "I should have seen it," he said, staring at the fire. "Should have taken her to Denver or back to her family, but I thought she'd adjust." You can't blame yourself for someone else's demons. Can't I brought her here. I kept her here. And my Thomas kept me in a house with his family who hated me knowing he was dying. We all make choices for the people we love. Sometimes they're the wrong choices, but they're made with love. Luke looked at her, then really looked at her, and Anna felt something shift between them. Not attraction exactly. They were both too raw with grief for that. But recognition, maybe. 2 damaged souls seeing themselves reflected. On the 4th morning, Anna woke to silence. The storm had passed, leaving the world buried in white but sparkling under a clear sky. "I should go," she said over breakfast. "I've imposed enough." "Go where?" She didn't have an answer. Luke pushed his eggs around his plate. "I have a proposition. Nothing improper," he added quickly, seeing her stiffen. "That foreman's cabin I mentioned, its sound just needs cleaning. You could stay there, help with the ranch work. I can't pay much, but you'd have a roof and food." "Why would you do that?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Maybe because I know what it's like to be alone. Maybe because this place could use a woman's touch. Or maybe because I think Thomas would want someone looking after his wife, even if that someone's a stranger." Anna studied his weathered face, looking for signs of deception or ulterior motives. She found none. "All right," she said, "but only until spring. Then I'll figure out something permanent." Luke nodded. "Fair enough." The foreman's cabin was small but sturdy, with a bed stove table and chair. It took Anna 3 days to clean it properly, scrubbing years of dust and neglect from every surface. Luke helped when he could, bringing furniture from his own cabin, an extra quilt, a better chair, even a small mirror that had been his wife's. They settled into a routine. Anna would rise before dawn to start breakfast in the main cabin while Luke tended the horses. They'd eat together, discussing the day's work, then go their separate ways, him to the cattle, her to the endless tasks of maintaining a ranch. She mended clothes and preserved what meat they had kept both cabins clean, and slowly brought order to Luke's bachelor chaos. In the evenings, they'd share supper and sometimes conversation. Luke was teaching her to play chess on a set he'd carved himself. She was a quick learner, already beginning to beat him occasionally. 2 weeks into this arrangement, they heard horses approaching. Luke grabbed his rifle, motioning for Anna to stay inside. But she recognized the voices, and her heart sank. Samuel and Judge Clayton. "Harrison," Samuel called out. "We know you're in there, and we know you've got my sister-in-law." Luke stepped onto the porch, rifle casual in his hands. "Gentlemen, what brings you to my land?" "The woman," Judge Clayton said. "She belongs with her family. I wasn't aware people could belong to anyone in Wyoming. War's been over for near 20 years. "Don't be smart, Harrison," Samuel snapped. "Anna's my responsibility." "Funny way of showing it, turning her out in a blizzard." Anna stepped out beside Luke. "Hello, Samuel." Her brother-in-law's face went red. "Get your things. You're coming home." "No, I'm not." "Frank's still willing to marry you," Judge Clayton said, though his tone suggested Frank had required some convincing. "Despite your adventures, it's a generous offer." "I decline." "You can't just decline," Samuel sputtered. "You're living with a man you're not married to. Your reputation—" "My reputation was forfeit the moment you chose Frank Clayton's horses over your brother's widow." Judge Clayton's hand went to his sidearm. Luke shifted slightly, the rifle barrel rising just enough to be noticed. "I'd think real careful about your next move, Judge," Luke said mildly. "You threatening me, Harrison?" "No, sir, just pointing out that the lady's made her choice clear. And since she's on my land working for wages that makes her under my protection, you're welcome to take it up with the territorial marshal if you've got a problem with that." The judge's face was purple with rage, but he knew the law. A woman employed and housed had rights few as they were. "This isn't over," he said finally. "Come on, Samuel." As they rode away, Samuel turned back. "You're dead to me, Anna. You hear dead. Don't come crying when this all falls apart." Anna stood straight until they were out of sight, then sagged against the porch rail. "They'll be back," Luke said. "I know. They'll make trouble." "I know that too." He looked at her, this woman who'd chosen uncertainty over security, pride over compromise. "You could have gone with them. Frank Clayton's rich. You'd have been comfortable. I'd have been owned." She met his eyes. "I've been owned once already, even if it was by a good man. I won't do it again." Luke nodded slowly. "Then we'd best prepare for whatever they're planning." Word spread through the valley like wildfire, the widow Whitfield living in sin with that hermit Luke Harrison. Some said she'd bewitched him. Others said he'd taken advantage of her grief. The truth, as always, was more complicated and less interesting than the gossip. Anna learned to ignore the whispers when she rode into town with Luke for supplies. The proper women would cross the street to avoid her, while the men would stare with a mixture of contempt and speculation that made her skin crawl. "Let me go alone," Luke said after a particularly nasty encounter with the minister's wife. "No, I won't hide." "It's not hiding, it's strategic retreat. It's letting them win." Luke admired her courage even as he worried about the cost. He'd lived as an outcast for years after Sarah's death, the man who'd driven his wife to madness. He was used to it. But Anna had been respectable once. The fall was harder. As winter deepened, they grew closer in ways neither had expected. Not romantically, that would have been too simple, too expected. Instead, they developed something rarer, true companionship. Luke would read aloud in the evenings while Anna sewed. She taught him to bake bread properly. He taught her to shoot, setting up targets behind the barn. "Why do I need to know this?" she asked after successfully hitting her 5th bottle in a row. "Because Judge Clayton's not the forgiving type, and because every person should know how to defend themselves." She was a natural with firearms, steady and calm. Luke wondered if Thomas had started her training or if this was wholly new. Either way, she took to it like she'd been born to it. One night in February, as they played chess by lamplight, Anna said suddenly, They were all waiting for him to die. Samuel, Martha, even Frank Clayton, I think, just circling like vultures waiting to divide up the spoils. And I was part of those spoils. Luke moved his bishop. People show their true nature when death comes calling. Thomas saw it. Near the end, he told me to leave as soon as he was gone. Said his brother wouldn't be kind. I thought he was delirious from the fever. He was trying to protect you. He couldn't even protect himself by then. Her voice broke slightly. I held him while he drowned in his own blood. 28 years old and he drowned in his own blood while I held him and lied that everything would be all right. Luke reached across the table and covered her hand with his. It was the first time he'd touched her since carrying her from the snow. You gave him comfort at the end. That's all anyone can do. She turned her hand under his palm to palm, and they sat like that for a long moment before she pulled away. Your move, she said. March brought an early thaw and unexpected visitors. 3 women from town appeared at the ranch one afternoon while Luke was out checking the herd. Anna recognized them, Mrs. Patterson, the banker's wife, Mrs. Dolby, who ran the general store with her husband, and Mrs. Carmichael, the minister's wife who'd been so cutting in town. Ladies, Anna said carefully from the porch. What brings you out here? Mrs. Patterson, clearly the designated speaker, cleared her throat. We've come to make you an offer, Mrs. Whitfield. I'm listening. The Women's Temperance Society has funds set aside for unfortunate women. We're prepared to pay for your passage to San Francisco where you could start fresh, away from all this. All this, Mrs. Carmichael couldn't contain herself. This den of sin, living with a man not your husband, flaunting your degradation. I work here, Anna interrupted. I keep house and help with the ranch. There's nothing improper. Please, Mrs. Dolby scoffed. We weren't born yesterday. We know what goes on between men and women. Anna felt her temper rising. Do you? Then you know more than I do because nothing goes on between Mr. Harrison and myself beyond honest work for honest wages. Regardless, Mrs. Patterson said, trying to regain control, your presence here is disruptive. Poor Frank Clayton has been beside himself. Poor Frank Clayton can go to hell, the women gasped in unison. And so can anyone else who thinks they have the right to dictate my life. Anna continued, I've done nothing wrong except refuse to be sold to the highest bidder. You're living in sin, Mrs. Carmichael shrieked. I'm living free. There's a difference, though. I don't expect you to understand it. Mrs. Patterson's face hardened. Then you've chosen your path. Don't expect any sympathy when it leads to ruin. As they turned to leave, Mrs. Dolby looked back. Your husband would be ashamed. Anna's composure finally cracked. My husband would be ashamed of women who claim Christianity while casting stones at a widow trying to survive. Get off this land before I forget I was raised to be a lady. She was shaking when Luke found her an hour later, still standing on the porch. I saw them leaving, he said. They upset you. They offered to ship me to San Francisco, like I was a problem to be solved. Maybe you should consider it. She turned on him, hurt flashing in her eyes. You want me gone? No. The word came out more forcefully than he'd intended. No, I don't. But this situation, it's getting harder. For you. I've survived harder. Have you? She thought about Thomas's last days, the blood and the gasping and the terrible hope that each breath wouldn't be his last. Yes. Luke nodded. Then we weather it together. Together? She agreed, and something shifted between them again. Something neither was ready to name. The real trouble started in April. Luke woke one night to the smell of smoke. He grabbed his rifle and ran outside to find his hay barn ablaze. Anna was already there in her nightgown and coat, futilely throwing buckets of water at the inferno. Let it go, Luke shouted, pulling her back. It's too far gone. They stood together watching months of feed go up in flames. By the time it burned to ash, the sun was rising. Clayton? Anna asked. Most likely. Can't prove it, though. 2 nights later, someone cut the fence on the north pasture. 20 head of cattle wandered off. It took Luke and Anna 2 days to round them up. A week after that, Luke found one of his best horses shot in the field. This is my fault, Anna said as they buried the animal. They're punishing you for helping me. They're showing themselves for what they are, cowards and bullies. I should leave. Luke stopped shoveling and looked at her. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter if it costs you everything. Answer the question. Do you want to leave? Anna met his eyes. Sometime over the winter, they'd gone from strangers to friends to something else, something precious and fragile. She thought about mornings sharing coffee, evenings playing chess, the comfortable silence of two people who didn't need words. No, she admitted. I don't want to leave. Then you stay. We'll handle whatever comes. What came was worse than either expected. Anna had ridden to town alone despite Luke's protests. They needed supplies, and he needed to guard the ranch. She'd been careful staying in public places, keeping her derringer hidden, but accessible in her pocket. She was loading the wagon outside the general store when Frank Clayton appeared. Hello, Anna. She didn't respond, just continued loading sacks of flour. Still playing the high and mighty widow, I see. Still playing the rejected suitor, I see. His face darkened. You cost me 2 good mares. You cost yourself 2 good mares by trying to buy a woman like livestock. He moved closer, backing her against the wagon. You think you're better than me, living with Harrison like his whore. I think I'm better than a man who'd force himself on an unwilling woman. Yes. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. Maybe I should show you what you're missing. Anna's free hand found the derringer, pressing it against his ribs before he realized she was armed. Let go, she said quietly, or I'll put a hole in you right here in front of God and everybody. Frank looked down at the gun, then at her face. What he saw there made him step back. You've gone wild, he said. Harrison's turned you into an animal. No, he reminded me I'm human. There's a difference. She climbed onto the wagon seat, gun still trained on him. Stay away from me, Frank, and stay away from the ranch. Next time I won't give you a warning. As she drove away, she heard him shouting, You'll regret this, both of you. When she told Luke what happened, his face went stone cold. Pack your things, he said. We're leaving. No, you're moving into the main cabin. If they come at night, I want you where I can protect you. Luke, that's not proper. He laughed bitterly. We passed proper a long time ago. This is about survival now. That night, Anna lay in Luke's bed while he kept watch by the window. She could hear him breathing in the darkness, steady and sure. Luke, yeah. What Sarah said about you driving her mad, it wasn't true. A long silence. How do you know? Because I've been here 4 months, and the only madness I've found is in the people trying to destroy us for choosing our own path. She heard him shift in his chair. Anna, I know, she said. I know what this is and isn't, but you saved me in more ways than just pulling me from that storm. I wanted you to know that. You saved yourself. I just gave you a place to do it. No. You gave me back my dignity, my choice, my strength. Thomas loved me, but he kept me soft. You've helped me find my spine. You always had it. Just needed reminding. They lapsed into silence, but it was the warm kind, full of understanding. The attack came 3 nights later. Anna woke to the sound of breaking glass and Luke's sharp curse. She grabbed the shotgun he'd insisted she keep beside the bed, her hand steady despite her racing heart. Through the window, she could see torches moving in the darkness, at least a dozen men on horseback circling the cabin. Stay inside, Luke commanded already at the door with his rifle. But Anna had learned something about herself in these months at the ranch. She was done with staying inside while others fought her battles. She moved to the window Luke had abandoned, shotgun ready. Harrison, Judge Clayton's voice boomed through the night. Send out the woman and we'll leave peaceful-like. Get off my land, Clayton, Luke shouted back. Not until we settle this proper. The woman's brought nothing but shame to this valley. Time she moved on. Anna could see Frank among the riders, his face eager in the torchlight. Her finger found the trigger, the weight of the gun familiar now after months of practice. I'm giving you 1 minute, the judge continued. Then we're coming in. Luke glanced at Anna and she saw him calculating the odds, the angles, the cost. He was a good shot, but 12 men was too many. She made the decision for both of them, stepping out onto the porch before Luke could stop her. "Here I am." She called out the shotgun, held low but visible. "What exactly do you want, Judge?" The men's horses shifted nervously. They hadn't expected her to confront them directly. In their world, women cowered inside while men settled things. "You know what we want," the judge said. "You gone from this valley. And if I refuse," Frank laughed ugly and sharp, "then we burn you out, both of you. Like you burned the barn, shot Luke's horse." Anna's voice carried clear in the cold night air. "Yes, we know that was you. Coward's work done in darkness. Watch your tongue, woman." Frank spurred his horse forward. Anna raised the shotgun and Frank's horse reared. "That's close enough." "You won't shoot," he sneered, though his eyes flickered with uncertainty. "Won't I? You seem to forget, Mr. Clayton, that I've already lost everything once. My husband, my home, my reputation. What exactly do you think I have left to lose?" Luke had moved silently to stand beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. "The lady asked you a question, Frank. This isn't your fight, Harrison," Judge Clayton said. "You've been bewitched by this Jezebel." "Jezebel." Anna laughed, and several horses shied at the bitter sound. "Because I wouldn't marry your son, because I chose to work for my keep rather than spread my legs for a man who disgusts me." The crude words shocked them. Proper women didn't speak so plainly, but Anna was past caring about proper. "You've turned savage," Mrs. Carmichael's husband spoke up from among the riders. "Living in sin has corrupted you." "Living free has opened my eyes," Anna corrected. "I see you all clearly now. Respected men of the community sneaking around in the dark like common criminals. Tell me, Reverend Carmichael, which commandment covers burning barns and killing horses?" The Reverend's face flushed, but before he could answer, Luke spoke up. "You've got 30 seconds to get off my land. After that, I start shooting, and unlike Mrs. Whitfield, I won't be aiming for the horses." "You're threatening us." Judge Clayton's hand went to his pistol. "I'm defending my property and my employee from a lynch mob. Any court in the territory would side with me." "What court would believe you over us?" Frank scoffed. "The one where I present this." Luke pulled a paper from his pocket. "Bill of sale dated yesterday. Mrs. Whitfield is now part owner of this ranch. That makes her a landowner, same as any of you. Same rights, same protections under law." Anna's breath caught. They hadn't discussed this. Luke had given her partial ownership without telling her legally protecting her in the only way that mattered in Wyoming. The judge's face went purple. "That paper won't be worth anything when you're both dead." "Maybe not," Luke agreed, "but whoever shoots first will hang for murder. I've got witnesses in town who know about this document. They know I was expecting trouble from you. Kill us, and you'll have federal marshals crawling all over this valley." It was a bluff mostly, but doubt flickered across several faces. These men were used to intimidating the powerless, not facing real consequences. "This isn't over," Judge Clayton finally said. "You can't protect her forever, Harrison." "I can try." The riders began to turn away, but Frank couldn't resist one last threat. "You'll slip up eventually, and when you do..." Anna's shotgun boomed, the blast passing inches over Frank's head. His horse reared, nearly throwing him. "That was your only warning," she said calmly, already reloading. "Come near this ranch again, and I won't miss." The men rode off in a thunder of hooves and curses. Anna stood watching until the last torch disappeared into the darkness. Then her knees buckled. Luke caught her before she hit the porch boards. "You magnificent fool," he said, half admiration, half anger. "You could have been killed. So could you." She was shaking now, adrenaline leaving her system. "The bill of sale, is it real?" "Filed it with the land office yesterday. You own 20% of the Double H ranch." "Luke, I can't accept." "You already have. It's legal and binding." He helped her to her feet, his hands gentle. "Besides, you've earned it. This place has never run better." "They'll come back." "Probably. We can't fight them all forever." "No," Luke agreed, "but we can make it costly enough that they think twice." Inside, Anna made coffee with trembling hands while Luke barricaded the windows. Neither of them would sleep tonight. "Why?" she asked finally. Why give me part of your ranch? Luke was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Because you deserve to own something that can't be taken away. Because you've worked for it. And because... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Because I've gotten used to thinking of this as our place, not just mine. The word our hung between them, laden with possibilities neither was ready to explore. Thank you, Anna said simply. Don't thank me yet. We've just painted bigger targets on our backs. As dawn broke, they stood together at the window, watching the sun paint the mountains gold. The ranch looked peaceful, but they both knew it was an illusion. The war had begun in earnest now. Over the next weeks, they turned the ranch into a fortress. Luke taught Anna to shoot a rifle with deadly accuracy. She taught herself to sleep light, waking at every unusual sound. They worked the ranch in shifts, one always on guard, while the other tended the cattle. The harassment continued, but more carefully now. Fences cut in the night, waterholes poisoned, dead animals left at the gate with threatening notes. But Anna and Luke endured, growing stronger and more united with each attack. The town itself became a battlefield. When Anna went for supplies, flanked always now by Luke, the proper citizens would make a show of their disgust. But a few, mostly other outcasts and struggling widows, would nod quietly in support. Mrs. Chen, who ran the laundry and knew about being scorned, would slip extra supplies into Anna's orders. Tom Martinez, the Mexican blacksmith who'd faced his own share of prejudice, would sharpen their tools for free. You're building an army of misfits, Luke observed one day, after Tom had refused payment for the third time. Maybe that's what it takes to change things, Anna replied. The misfits and the outcasts banding together. It was during one of these town visits that Anna encountered someone unexpected. Thomas's cousin Elizabeth from Denver. Elizabeth was everything Anna had once aspired to be: properly dressed, properly married, properly respectable. Anna... Elizabeth's shock was evident. My God, is it really you? Hello, Elizabeth. They stood awkwardly in the street, the weight of scandal between them. Elizabeth's eyes took in Anna's work-worn dress, her sun-darkened skin, the calluses visible on her hands. We heard, that is, Samuel wrote that you'd fallen. I survived, Anna corrected. There's a difference. Elizabeth glanced nervously at Luke, who stood a respectful distance away but clearly protective. Is it true what they're saying, that you're living with him? I work for Mr. Harrison. We're business partners. But surely... Anna, your reputation? My reputation was the price of my freedom. I paid it gladly. Elizabeth's perfect composure cracked slightly. How can you be so cavalier? You were Thomas's wife. You had position respectability. I had a cage with golden bars. Now I have a life I've chosen for myself. But what about love, marriage, children? Anna thought about Luke, about the quiet evenings, and shared struggles about the way her heart lifted when she heard his horse returning home. There are different kinds of love, Elizabeth. The kind that owns you and the kind that frees you. I've had both now. Elizabeth shook her head. I don't understand you anymore. You never did. You just understood the role I played. As Elizabeth walked away, Anna felt the last tie to her old life snap. It should have hurt, but instead she felt lighter, freer. That night she told Luke about the encounter. Any regrets, he asked. No. Do you about Sarah? About the life you might have had if she'd lived? Luke considered this. I used to think about it all the time. The children we might have had, the ranch we'd have built together. But that was a different man's dream. The man I am now, this is the only life that makes sense. Lonely, but free. Not lonely anymore. Their eyes met across the chessboard, and Anna felt that pull again, stronger now. But still neither moved. The partnership they'd built was too precious to risk on feelings that might be nothing more than shared isolation. May brought unexpected beauty to the ranch. Wildflowers bloomed across the pastures, and new calves gambled beside their mothers. Anna had never experienced a Wyoming spring from this perspective, as someone with a stake in the land rather than just living on it. We need to brand the calves, Luke announced one morning. Usually hire a few hands for it, but no one will work for the pariahs of the valley, Anna finished. Pretty much. Then we do it ourselves. Luke looked skeptical. It's hard work. Hot, dirty, dangerous. I've noticed you have a tendency to underestimate me, Mr. Harrison. I've noticed you have a tendency to be stubborn, Mrs. Whitfield. They smiled at each other, the kind of smile that comes from truly knowing someone. The branding took 3 days. Anna learned to rope and throw calves, to handle the red-hot iron, to work until her muscles screamed and then keep working. By the end, she was covered in sweat dirt and various substances she didn't want to identify, but she'd never felt more accomplished. "You did good," Luke said as they watched the last calf run back to its mother. "I had a good teacher." "Anna." He turned to her, something intense in his expression. "I need to tell you something." Her heart jumped. "What is it?" But before he could speak, they heard horses approaching. A lot of horses. Luke grabbed his rifle, but then relaxed slightly. "That's Sheriff Morrison's gray." The sheriff rode up with 2 deputies, his face grim. "Luke, Mrs. Whitfield." "Sheriff." Luke nodded. "What brings you out here?" "Official business, I'm afraid." Morrison dismounted, pulling a document from his coat. "Mrs. Whitfield, you're under arrest." "What?" Luke stepped forward, but the deputies raised their rifles. "For what charge?" Anna asked, surprisingly calm. "Assault. Frank Clayton says you threatened him with a firearm in town. Multiple witnesses." "He grabbed me first. I was defending myself." "That's for a judge to decide. I'm sorry, ma'am, but you'll need to come with us." Luke moved to stand beside Anna. "This is Clayton's doing. He owns half the witnesses in town." "Maybe so," Morrison agreed quietly. "But I've got a warrant. I have to execute it." "It's all right," Anna said, putting a hand on Luke's arm. "I'll go." "Anna, no. I won't run from this. I won't give them the satisfaction." She looked at the sheriff. "May I pack a few things?" Morrison nodded. "You've got 10 minutes." Inside the cabin, Luke paced while Anna calmly packed a small bag. "This is a setup," he said. "Clayton's bought the judge guaranteed." "I know." "Then why?" "Because running makes me guilty. And because—" She paused in her packing. "Because I trust you to find a way to fix this." "Anna." She turned to him, and suddenly they were standing very close. "You will find a way. I know you will." Luke's hand came up to cup her cheek, the first truly intimate touch between them. "I won't let them hurt you." "I know." For a moment they stood frozen, balanced on the edge of something. Then Anna stepped back, picked up her bag, and walked out to face whatever came next. The jail in Bitter Creek was a 2-cell building that smelled of whiskey and despair. Anna was the only prisoner, which was both a blessing and a curse. The sheriff at least seemed uncomfortable with the situation. "I'll make sure you're fed proper," he said, "and I'll post a deputy at night. Make sure no one bothers you." "You mean make sure Frank Clayton doesn't visit?" Morrison's face tightened. "I don't like this any more than you do, ma'am. But the law's the law. Even when it's bought and paid for." The sheriff didn't answer, just locked the cell and left. Anna spent her first night in jail thinking about Thomas. What would he think of her now? His properly raised wife sitting in a cell for pulling a gun on a man. She thought he'd be proud, actually. He'd always said she was stronger than she knew. Luke came the next morning, and the deputy let him sit outside her cell. He'd ridden through the night to Cheyenne trying to find a lawyer who'd take her case. "No one will touch it," he said, frustration evident. "Clayton's reach is longer than I thought. Then I'll defend myself." "Anna, you can't—" "Why not? I can read. I can speak. I know what happened." Luke pulled a law book from his saddlebag. "Then you'd better start studying. Trial's in 3 days." For 3 days, Anna read everything Luke could bring her about Wyoming law. She discovered something interesting. Women had been granted the right to vote in Wyoming Territory in 1869. And with it came other rights, including the right to own property and defend themselves in court. "It's not much," Luke said when she showed him the relevant passages, "but it's something. It's more than something, it's precedent." The trial was held in the town hall, packed with spectators eager for drama. Judge Harlan, brought in from Laramie, was supposedly impartial, but Anna saw him nod to Judge Clayton as he took his seat. Frank Clayton testified first, painting a picture of Anna as a deranged woman who'd pulled a gun on him for no reason. His witnesses, all men who owed Judge Clayton money or favors, corroborated his story. When it came time for Anna to speak, the prosecutor, a thin man named Giles, smirked. "Does the defendant have representation?" "I'll be representing myself." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Judge Harlan frowned. "Mrs. Whitfield, that's highly irregular." "But legal," Anna interrupted. "According to Wyoming Territorial Law Section 49, subsection 3. The judge's frown deepened, but he nodded. "Proceed." Anna stood smoothing her dress. She'd worn her best, the brown wool that Thomas had loved, carefully mended and pressed. "Gentlemen of the jury," she began, then paused. "And I note it is all gentlemen despite Wyoming law allowing women to serve. Interesting choice for a case involving a woman's right to self-defense." "Objection," Giles called out. "Relevance." "Sustained. Mrs. Whitfield, stick to the facts of the case." Anna nodded. "The facts are these, Mr. Frank Clayton approached me while I was loading supplies. He backed me against a wagon. He grabbed my wrist hard enough to leave bruises. Bruises documented by Mrs. Chen, who saw them that very day. When he suggested he would show me what I was missing, I defended myself with the only means available, a derringer I carry for protection." "Can you prove any of this?" Giles asked snidely. "Can Mr. Clayton prove I wasn't defending myself?" "He's admitted I had cause to fear him. He's been pursuing me against my will for months. He's admitted he grabbed me. The only question is whether a woman has the right to defend herself against unwanted advances." "You pulled a gun on an unarmed man," Frank burst out. Anna turned to him calmly. "An unarmed man who outweighs me by 100 pounds and had me trapped against a wagon. Tell me, Mr. Clayton, what exactly were your intentions when you grabbed me?" Frank's face went red. "I was just talking. Talking requires hands. Interesting conversation technique." Laughter rippled through the crowd, quickly suppressed. Judge Harlan banged his gavel. "Order, Mrs. Whitfield, do you have any witnesses?" "I do. I call Mrs. Lily Chen." There was a stir as the Chinese woman entered. Many in the crowd had never seen her treated as an equal in a court of law. "Mrs. Chen," Anna said gently, "did you see my wrist the day in question?" "Yes." Lily's voice was soft but clear. "Bad bruises, finger marks. I gave you salve." "Objection." Giles stood. "This witness is—" "That is—" "What?" Anna challenged. "Not white, not a man, but still a resident of this territory with eyes that work perfectly well." Judge Harlan looked uncomfortable. "The witness may continue." Lily described the bruises in detail, and though Giles tried to discredit her, she held firm. Anna called two more witnesses, Tom Martinez, who'd seen Frank following her around town, and surprisingly Mrs. Dolby from the general store. "I don't approve of your living situation," Mrs. Dolby said primly, "but I saw Frank Clayton grab you that day. You tried to pull away twice before you drew that gun." The crowd murmured. This was unexpected, one of the town's proper women supporting Anna. In his closing argument, Giles painted Anna as a fallen woman whose word couldn't be trusted. Anna's response was simple and powerful. "I'm not asking you to approve of my choices," she said to the jury. "I'm asking you to affirm that even a fallen woman has the right not to be grabbed, threatened, or assaulted. If you rule against me, you're saying that any woman who doesn't live up to your moral standards is fair game for any man who wants her. Is that the message you want to send to your daughters? Your wives?" The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood nervously. "We find the defendant not guilty." The courtroom erupted. Frank Clayton stormed out, his father close behind. Luke pushed through the crowd to reach Anna, his face bright with relief and something else, something that made her heart race. "You did it," he said, grasping her hands. "You brilliant, brave woman, you did it." "We did it," she corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." They stood there, hands clasped, obvious to the scandal they were causing, lost in each other's eyes. Sheriff Morrison cleared his throat. "You're free to go, Mrs. Whitfield." As they walked out into the afternoon sun, Anna felt something shift in the town's atmosphere. Not acceptance, not yet, but a grudging respect. She'd fought by their rules and won. They'll come at us harder now, Luke warned as they rode home. I know. Are you ready for that? Anna thought about the cell, the trial, the faces of the jury as they realized she was right. I'm ready for anything. That night they sat on the porch watching the stars, the chessboard forgotten between them. You were magnificent today, Luke said quietly. I was terrified. Couldn't tell. I've gotten good at hiding it. Thomas used to say I had a poker face that could fool the devil himself. He was right. They lapsed into comfortable silence, but Anna could feel something building between them, had been feeling it for weeks now. Luke. Yeah. That thing you were going to tell me before the sheriff came. What was it? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was going to say that somewhere along the way this stopped being about giving you shelter and became about not being able to imagine this place without you. Anna's breath caught. Luke, I know we both have ghosts. I know this started as necessity. But Anna, She kissed him. It was nothing like kissing Thomas had been, that had been sweet, gentle, safe. This was fire and promise and a hunger she hadn't known she could feel. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. I won't be owned again, she said firmly, not even by you. I don't want to own you. I want to stand beside you. As equals, as partners, in everything. Anna studied his face in the moonlight, this man who'd saved her, challenged her, believed in her when no one else would. I need time, she said finally. It's too much, too fast. I've got time. She stood to go inside, then paused. Luke, that partnership. It's already real. The rest, we'll see. As she lay in bed that night, Anna thought about the journey that had brought her here. From Thomas's deathbed to a frozen road to a jail cell to a courtroom to a kiss under the stars. She'd lost everything and found herself. And maybe, just maybe, she'd found something else too. But first they had to survive what was coming. Because Frank Clayton's face as he'd stormed out of that courtroom had promised one thing: revenge. The revenge came sooner than expected. Anna woke 3 nights after the trial to find the chicken coop in flames, the birds screaming as they burned. She and Luke fought the fire with buckets and blankets, but by dawn they'd lost everything: 30 laying hens that had been a steady source of eggs and income. This has to stop, Anna said, her face streaked with soot and tears she wouldn't acknowledge. The smell of burned feathers clung to everything. Luke stood surveying the damage, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. It will. One way or another. What does that mean? He turned to her and she saw something dark in his eyes she'd never seen before. It means I'm done playing defense. Luke, you can't what? Fight back. They're trying to destroy us, Anna. The law won't help. Morrison made that clear when he said there was no evidence to prove who set the fire. Anna knew he was right. The sheriff had come, looked around, and shrugged. Could have been lightning, he'd said, though the sky had been clear. Could have been a spark from your stove. Everyone knew it was the Claytons, but knowing and proving were different things. If you go after them, you become like them, Anna argued. Maybe that's what it takes. Luke stalked toward the barn. Maybe meeting violence with violence is the only language they understand. Anna caught his arm. That's not who you are. You don't know who I am. He pulled free, his voice harsh. You know the man who saved you from the snow, who taught you chess, who gave you shelter. But Anna, I've done things. During the war after Sarah died, I'm not some noble hero from one of those novels you read. I never thought you were. She stepped closer, forcing him to look at her. I know exactly who you are, Luke Harrison. You're a man who's been broken and put himself back together, just like me. And if you think I fell in... She caught herself. If you think I care about you because I see you as perfect, you're wrong. The fight went out of him suddenly, and he slumped against the barn wall. I can't lose this place, Anna. It's all I have. You have me. The words hung between them, more declaration than either had intended. Luke looked at her, really looked at her, standing there in her nightgown and coat, covered in soot hair wild around her face, and he'd never seen anything more beautiful. Do I? He asked softly. Before Anna could answer, they heard riders approaching, many riders. Luke grabbed his rifle, but Anna recognized the lead horse. "It's Tom Martinez," she said, surprised. "And is that Mrs. Chen?" It was. Tom rode up with his 3 sons, while Mrs. Chen sat properly on a wagon driven by her husband. Behind them came 6 more riders, all outcasts and misfits from town. The Negro family who'd arrived last year and been relegated to the edges of society. The Irish brothers who worked the mines. Even old Pete, the town drunk who turned out to be a former professor who'd lost everything in the war. "Heard you had some trouble," Tom said, dismounting. "Figured you could use some help cleaning up." "And rebuilding," one of the Irish brothers added. "Brought lumber from a job that fell through. Client couldn't pay, so it's ours to do with as we please." Anna's throat tightened. Why would you risk the Claytons' anger for us?" Mrs. Chen climbed down from the wagon with surprising dignity. "Because you stood up. In that courtroom, you stood up for all of us who've been grabbed, pushed, ignored. You said we matter." "I was just defending myself." "No," old Pete interrupted, his voice clearer than anyone had heard it in years. "You were defending the principle that people like us have rights too. That's worth a burned chicken coop or 2. They worked through the day rebuilding stronger than before. The women cooked while the men constructed, and by evening a new coop stood where the old had been better built and bigger. Tom's wife had even brought a dozen young chickens to replace some of what was lost. As the sun set, they all sat together eating the meal the women had prepared. It was an odd gathering, races and classes that never mixed in town, brought together by shared understanding of what it meant to be outsiders. "This is dangerous," Luke said quietly to Tom. "Clayton won't like you helping us." Tom shrugged. "Clayton already doesn't like me. I'm Mexican. My money's good enough for his bank, but I'm not good enough for his society. At least this way I'm disliked for something I chose." As their helpers prepared to leave, old Pete pulled Luke aside. "You should know Clayton's been meeting with some rough characters from Laramie, hired guns from the look of them." Luke's face darkened. "How many?" 4, maybe 5. They're staying at the hotel keeping quiet, but I recognize the type. Saw plenty during the war." After everyone left, Luke and Anna stood looking at their new chicken coop, both understanding it might not stand long. "We can't fight hired guns," Anna said quietly. "No, but we can be ready for them." Luke turned to her. "I want you to start carrying the shotgun even around the ranch, and we're going to start sleeping in shifts." "Luke, this is past harassment now, Anna. This is war." The attack came 5 days later, but not how they expected. Anna had ridden to check the eastern pasture, the shotgun across her saddle, as Luke had insisted. She found the fence cut and 20 head of cattle missing. As she turned to ride back, 4 men emerged from the rocks, spreading out to surround her. She recognized one from town, a scarred man who'd arrived the week before. The others were strangers, but their intent was clear in their eyes. "Mrs. Whitfield," the scarred man said pleasantly. "Mr. Clayton would like a word." "Mr. Clayton can go to hell." "Now that's not very ladylike." He moved his horse closer. "Here's what's going to happen. You're coming with us nice and quiet. Harrison will get a note saying if he wants you back breathing, he'll sign over the ranch and leave Wyoming." Anna's hand moved to the shotgun, but another man already had his pistol drawn. "I wouldn't," he said mildly. "You're making a mistake," Anna said, surprised by how calm she felt. "Luke won't trade the ranch for me." "Won't he?" The scarred man smiled. "Man gives a woman part of his ranch, stands by her against the whole town, kisses her under the stars. Oh yes, we've been watching. That man will do anything to keep her safe. You don't know him. Maybe not. But Clayton knows men like him. Lonely men who've found something worth fighting for. They're predictable." Anna thought about Luke, about his darkness and his light, his gentleness and his capacity for violence. These men had no idea what they were about to unleash. "I'll come," she said. "But not because I'm afraid of you. I'll come because I want to see Frank Clayton's face when he realizes he's lost." The scarred man laughed. Brave words for a woman about to disappear. They rode for an hour to an abandoned line shack. Anna recognized it was on what used to be Whitfield land, now Samuel's. Fitting, she thought bitterly. Even now her brother-in-law was part of her torment. Frank Clayton was waiting inside, trying to look commanding, but only managing to look nervous. His father wasn't there, plausible deniability, Anna assumed. "Hello, Anna," Frank said, attempting charm. "Sorry about the rough treatment." "No, you're not." His face flushed. "You're right, I'm not. You humiliated me in that courtroom, made me look like a fool. You did that yourself the moment you thought you could buy me." Frank backhanded her, the crack echoing in the small space. Anna tasted blood, but didn't give him the satisfaction of crying out. "I'm done being nice," Frank said. "Here's what happens now. Harrison gets a note. He signs over the ranch and leaves Wyoming, or you die. Simple. He won't do it. Then you die and I take the ranch anyway. See, we found something interesting in the land office records. That bill of sale Harrison filed, it needs both signatures to sell. But if one partner dies, the other inherits. And if both die," Frank smiled coldly, "the land goes to auction, and guess who'll be bidding?" Anna's heart sank. They'd found the one flaw in Luke's protection. "You'd murder us both for land numb, for pride, for teaching this valley that no one crosses the Claytons absolutely. Your father, my father wants this over. How it ends doesn't much matter to him anymore." Frank pulled out paper and pen. "You're going to write Luke a note. Tell him to come alone, bring the deed." "No." Frank nodded to the scarred man who grabbed Anna's hand and bent her fingers back until she gasped. "Write," Frank ordered. Anna wrote, but not what Frank expected. She knew Luke would recognize her handwriting, would read between the lines. She chose her words carefully. "Luke, I'm safe for now. They want the ranch. Remember what you taught me about chess? Sometimes the queen must sacrifice herself to protect the king. Don't come. Let them make the next move. All my love, A." Frank read it and laughed. Chess metaphors. How touching. Though you got it wrong, the king protects the queen, not the other way around. "You've never played Luke," Anna said. "He taught me that the queen is the most powerful piece on the board." Frank sealed the note. "Take this to Harrison," he told one of his men. "Tell him he has until dawn to bring the deed. Alone." As the rider left, Anna settled in to wait, her face throbbing where Frank had hit her. She thought about Thomas, wondering what he'd think of her now, captured because she'd refused to yield facing death, because she'd insisted on freedom. He'd probably be horrified and proud in equal measure. "You could have had a good life," Frank said, pouring himself whiskey from a flask. "I would have given you everything. Everything except choice." "Choice," he spat the word. "What's choice gotten you?" "You're going to die in a line shack, and for what?" "Pride." "Freedom," Anna corrected. "Something you'll never understand because you've never had to fight for it." Meanwhile, Luke received the note as the sun touched the horizon. He read it 3 times, his face revealing nothing to the messenger. "Tell Clayton I'll be there at dawn," he said evenly. The messenger smirked. "Alone with the deed." "I heard the terms." After the man left, Luke saddled his horse and rode hard for town, but not to the sheriff. He went to Tom Martinez's house, then to the Chens, then to every ally Anna had made with her courage. By midnight, he had his answer. At dawn, Luke rode toward the line shack alone, the deed in his pocket. But he wasn't really alone. In the rocks above, Tom and his sons took position. The Irish brothers circled wide to flank. Even old Pete, hands shaky but eyes clear, found a vantage point with a rifle he hadn't held since the war. Luke dismounted 50 yards from the shack. "Clayton, I'm here." Frank emerged, pushing Anna in front of him, a gun to her head. Her face was bruised, but her eyes were fierce and alive. "The deed," Frank called. Luke held up the paper. "Let her go first. You think I'm stupid? Throw it over here." "No." Luke's voice was calm, deadly. "Here's what happens. You let Anna walk to me. When she's safe, I throw you the deed. Then we leave. You get what you want, the ranch. And if I just shoot you both now, then you die." Luke let his coat fall open, revealing the pistol at his hip. "I might be able to drop you before you clear leather, or maybe not. Want to find out?" Frank hesitated. He'd expected Luke broken, desperate, willing to do anything. This cold-eyed gunfighter wasn't what he'd planned for. "The men you hired are already running," Luke continued conversationally. Seems they heard about the reception committee waiting for them. Hired guns are practical that way. No job's worth dying for. Frank's eyes darted around looking for his men. The scarred man was gone, along with two others. Only one remained, and he looked nervous. You're bluffing. Luke smiled, and it was terrifying. Anna, remember what I taught you about hunting. Despite the gun to her head, Anna smiled back. When the prey thinks it's the predator, it's already lost. In one fluid motion, Anna dropped to her knees while Luke drew and fired. His bullet caught Frank's gun hand, sending the weapon flying. Frank screamed, clutching his bleeding hand, and Anna rolled away, coming up with the derringer she'd hidden in her boot. Nobody move! Sheriff Morrison's voice boomed from behind the shack. He emerged with 3 deputies all armed. Everyone just calm down. Sheriff, Frank gasped. Arrest them. What I see Morrison interrupted, is you kidnapping Mrs. Whitfield. Again, that's a hanging offense, Frank. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Morrison pulled out a letter. Your hired man, the one with the scar, he decided he'd rather testify than hang. Gave us everything, your plans, your father's involvement, all of it. Judge Clayton emerged from behind the shack, his face ashen. Frank, you fool! Father, I'll tell them the truth, the judge said heavily. That my son lost his mind over a woman and destroyed our family's reputation. He looked at Anna. I apologize, Mrs. Whitfield. This isn't what I intended. Yes, it is, Anna said quietly. You just didn't expect to lose. The judge had no answer to that. As Morrison's deputies took Frank away, Luke wrapped his coat around Anna's shoulders. You all right? I am now. She leaned into him solid and warm and alive. Though I have to say your rescue was a bit dramatic, says the woman who dropped to her knees with a gun to her head. I trusted you. Always. Always. They rode home together as the sun climbed higher, their allies emerging from hiding to escort them. The ranch looked different somehow, not just a refuge anymore, but truly home. Frank was right about one thing, Luke said as they dismounted. The whole valley knows now. About us. Let them know. Anna turned to face him. I'm done hiding, done apologizing, done pretending I'm anything other than what I am, a woman who chose her own path. And what path is that? She looked at him, this man who'd given her shelter, partnership, and something more precious, the space to become herself. The one that leads here, she said simply. With you. Word of Frank's arrest spread quickly. Within a day, the entire valley knew how he'd kidnapped Anna, how Luke had orchestrated her rescue, how Judge Clayton himself had turned against his son. The judge resigned his position and left for California, abandoning Frank to his fate. Without his father's protection, Frank was convicted and sentenced to 5 years hard labor. Samuel arrived at the ranch the day after Frank's sentencing, looking older and somehow smaller than Anna remembered. I came to apologize, he said stiffly. Anna stood on the porch, Luke beside her, and felt nothing. No anger, no forgiveness, just emptiness where family feeling should be. Thomas would be ashamed of me, Samuel continued. I failed his widow when she needed help most. Yes, Anna agreed. You did. Samuel flinched. I've brought money. Not much, but it's part of what Thomas would have wanted you to have. Keep it, Anna said. I don't need your money or your guilt. Anna, please. You're not welcome here, Samuel. Not now, not ever. You made your choice that day in December. Now live with it. As Samuel rode away, shoulders slumped in defeat, Luke touched Anna's hand. That was hard. No, Anna said, watching the dust of Samuel's departure. That was easy. He means nothing to me now. The hard part was surviving long enough to be able to say that. That evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Luke said, The offer stands, you know. What offer? To make this permanent, you and me. Anna looked at him, this complicated, difficult, wonderful man who'd saved her in every way a person could be saved. Are you proposing Luke Harrison? I'm suggesting that 2 people who've been through what we've been through might want to make it official. How romantic, Anna said dryly, but she was smiling. I'm not good with words, Luke admitted. But Anna, these months with you, I was dead inside before you came, just going through the motions waiting to join Sarah. You brought me back to life. We brought each other back, Anna corrected. Neither of us would have survived alone. So ask me properly. Luke stood, then knelt beside her chair, taking her hand. Anna Whitfield, you magnificent, stubborn, brave woman, will you marry me? Not because you need protection, not because society demands it, but because I love you and can't imagine this ranch, this life without you. Anna looked down at him, this man who'd first saved her life and then given her the tools to save herself. Yes, she said simply. Yes, Luke Harrison, I'll marry you. He stood and kissed her deep and passionate, the kind of kiss that promised forever. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. When? Luke asked. Soon, before the town finds something else to gossip about. Let them gossip, Luke said, pulling her close. We've earned it. They were married 2 weeks later, not in the church that had rejected them, but at the ranch surrounded by their true friends, the outcasts and misfits who'd stood by them. Tom Martinez served as Luke's best man while Lily Chen stood with Anna. Old Pete, surprisingly sober and eloquent, performed the ceremony with a license he'd maintained from his professor days. Anna wore her mother's wedding dress altered to fit and carefully mended. Luke wore his best suit, the one he'd bought years ago for Sarah's funeral and never worn since. They exchanged rings made from horseshoe nails Tom had fashioned in his forge, not pretty, but strong and unbreakable. Do you, Luke Harrison, take this woman to be your wife, to stand beside her as an equal partner in all things? Pete asked. The words altered from tradition at Anna's request. I do. Do you, Anna Whitfield, take this man to be your husband, to stand beside him as an equal partner in all things? I do. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you husband and wife, and may God help anyone who tries to come between you. The small gathering laughed and cheered as Luke and Anna kissed, sealing their unconventional union. That night, as they lay together for the first time as husband and wife, Anna traced the scars on Luke's chest marks, from the war, from hard living, from survival. No regrets? He asked. None. You. Only that it took almost losing you to find the courage to love again. We both needed time, Anna said. Time to grieve, time to heal, time to discover who we were alone before we could be together. And now we face whatever comes, together. The challenges weren't over. The ranch still struggled, the town still whispered, and there were those who would never accept them. But something had shifted in the valley's power structure. With the Claytons gone and the outcasts banded together, change was coming. Anna started a school for the children who weren't welcome in town: Mexican, Chinese, Negro, Irish. Luke expanded the ranch, taking on partners from among their allies, creating a cooperative that threatened the traditional power structure. One evening, as summer turned to fall, Anna stood where she'd once stood months before, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. But now Luke stood beside her, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. Do you ever think about how different it might have been? Luke asked. If that storm hadn't come, if I hadn't found you? Every day, Anna admitted. I'd probably be dead, or worse, married to Frank Clayton, dying slowly inside. And I'd still be a ghost haunting this place. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the day end and night begin the eternal cycle of ending and beginning that marked ranch life. Luke? I'm pregnant. Luke went perfectly still, then turned her to face him. Are you sure? The doctor confirmed it yesterday. A dozen emotions crossed Luke's face: joy, fear, wonder, concern. Anna, is this what you want? It's what I choose, she said firmly. Just like I chose you, chose this life, chose freedom, even when it nearly killed me. Luke pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. A baby, he whispered. Our baby. Our baby, Anna confirmed. Born free, raised free, never knowing what it means to be owned or controlled. The town will have to accept it. We're not going anywhere. As they walked back to their cabin, their home, Anna thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a desperate widow with nowhere to go to a woman with land, a husband who saw her as an equal, and a child growing inside her. The price had been high, her reputation, her family, nearly her life, but the reward was freedom. That night, as Luke held her close, one hand protective over her still flat stomach, Anna whispered, "Thank you." For what? For seeing me in that storm, for giving me shelter, for letting me find myself. "Thank you," Luke whispered back, "for reminding me how to live." Outside, the wind howled across the Wyoming plains, but inside they were warm, safe, and free. It was enough. It was everything. The news of Anna's pregnancy spread through the valley like wildfire, just as she'd expected. But what she hadn't expected was the visit from Martha, Samuel's wife, on a cold October morning when Luke was out with the cattle. Anna stood on the porch, one hand unconsciously protective over her growing belly, watching her former sister-in-law approach. Martha looked older, worn down, her once proud bearing diminished. "Anna," Martha said, stopping at the bottom of the porch steps, May I come in?" Every instinct told Anna to refuse to send this woman away as coldly as she'd been cast out. But something in Martha's eyes, a desperation, a pain Anna recognized, made her step aside. "Luke's not here," Anna said carefully. "I know, I watched him leave. I wanted to speak to you alone." They sat at the kitchen table, the same rough-hewn piece Luke had built years ago for a different life, a different woman. Anna poured coffee, her movements deliberate, letting the silence stretch. "Samuel's drinking," Martha said abruptly, "has been since Frank Clayton's trial. The shame of it, of what we did to you. It's eating him alive. That's not my concern anymore." "No, I suppose it isn't." Martha wrapped her hands around the coffee cup as if seeking warmth. "But I had to come. To tell you something about Thomas." Anna stiffened. "What about Thomas?" "He came to me 2 weeks before he died, when Samuel was in town." Martha's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "He begged me to protect you after. Said he knew Samuel would try to cast you out, knew Frank Clayton had his eye on you. He offered me money he'd hidden away if I'd stand up for you." The words hit Anna like a physical blow. "You took his money and did nothing." "I took his money," Martha agreed, tears streaming down her face. $20 hidden in a flour sack, and I kept silent when Samuel threw you out. I let you walk into that storm because I was afraid of Samuel, afraid of losing my own security." Anna's hands clenched in her lap. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I can't sleep. Because I see Thomas's face every night, disappointed and betrayed. Because you survived despite us, and that survival is a daily reminder of our cowardice." Martha reached into her bag and pulled out a small leather pouch. "The $20, plus what interest I could manage." "I don't want your money." "Then give it to your child. Call it Thomas's final gift." Martha stood to leave, then paused. "Samuel doesn't know I'm here. He's not the man Thomas was. He never was. Thomas got all the kindness in that family, all the goodness, and we let him down. We let you both down." After Martha left, Anna sat alone until Luke returned the weight of Thomas's last attempt to protect her heavy on her heart. When she told Luke about the visit, his face darkened. She waited until now to confess. When you're safe, and she needs absolution. She needs forgiveness. She doesn't deserve it. Anna moved to the window, watching the clouds gather over the mountains. "Maybe not, but Thomas would want me to forgive her. He always saw the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it." "You're not Thomas." "No," Anna agreed, turning back to him. "I'm stronger, which is why I can forgive her without forgetting what she did. The two aren't the same." Luke crossed to her, pulling her close. "You're a better person than I am." "No, just someone who's learned that carrying hatred is like carrying stones. Eventually the weight breaks you. I've got better things to carry now." She took his hand and placed it on her growing belly. "Feel that the baby's moving." Luke's eyes widened as he felt the flutter of life beneath his palm. "Strong already, like its mother." "Like both its parents," Anna corrected. As November arrived with its bitter winds and early snows, the ranch prepared for winter. But this year was different. Tom Martinez and his sons helped Luke repair the barn, reinforcing it against the weather. The Chen family brought preserved vegetables and fruits recipes from their homeland, adapted to Wyoming's harsh climate. Even some of the townspeople who'd shunned them began to nod in greeting, the reality of a pregnant woman softening their judgment. It was during one of these preparation days that Sheriff Morrison arrived with unexpected news. "Frank Clayton's dead," he announced without preamble. Anna's hand went to her throat. "How? Prison fight." Apparently he couldn't keep his mouth shut about being better than the other prisoners. One of them took exception with a sharpened spoon to the gut. "Good riddance," Luke said flatly. Morrison shifted uncomfortably. "There's more. Before he died, Frank wrote a confession. About everything. The harassment, the barn burning, trying to force Anna into marriage, the kidnapping. He implicated several others, 2 men who helped him. I'll be making arrests this week." "Why confess?" Anna asked, bewildered. "Prison preacher got to him, maybe. Or maybe he just wanted to hurt the people he blamed for his downfall. Either way, it clears your names completely. Not that most folks didn't already know the truth." After Morrison left, Anna and Luke stood together in their kitchen, absorbing this news. "It's over," Luke said wonderingly. "Really over." "The Frank Clayton part is over," Anna corrected. "But our life, that's just beginning." That night they received another visitor. Old Pete arrived with a bottle of good whiskey and a proposition. "I've been sober 3 months, and," he announced proudly. "Haven't felt this clear-headed since before the war." "That's wonderful, Pete," Anna said warmly. "What changed?" "You did, both of you. Watching you fight for your dignity, your freedom, made me realize I'd given up mine at the bottom of a bottle." He pulled out a worn leather folder. "I want to teach again, really teach. That school you started for the outcast children, I want to help run it properly." Anna's informal school had grown from 5 children to 15, cramming into the barn twice a week for lessons. "Pete, that would be wonderful, but we can't pay much. Don't need much, just purpose, and maybe a corner of your barn to sleep in until I can build something proper." Luke extended his hand. "Welcome to the Double H, Professor." Pete's eyes filled with tears as he shook Luke's hand. "Haven't been called that in 10 years. "Well, you are now," Anna said firmly. "Professor Peter Hutchinson, teacher at the Double H Free School." "Free school?" Pete asked. "Free as in no cost, and free as in teaching children to think freely, choose freely, be free." Anna's eyes shone with purpose. "We're going to teach them everything the town school won't, that their skin color doesn't determine their worth, that their parents' nationality doesn't limit their dreams, that poverty isn't a moral failing." "That's dangerous thinking," Pete warned, but he was smiling. "Good," Luke said. "This valley needs some dangerous thinking." As winter deepened, the school became the heart of something larger. Parents who'd been isolated in their struggles began to gather, sharing resources and support. The Mexican families taught the Irish families about preserving peppers and making them last through winter. The Chinese families shared their knowledge of medicinal herbs with the Negro families, who shared their techniques for smoking meat. Anna, growing larger with child, but undaunted, coordinated it all from her kitchen table. "You're building a community," Luke observed one evening as she wrote out lesson plans for Pete. "We're building a community," she corrected. "You're part of this too." "I just provide the space and the protection." Anna looked up at him. "You provide the example. A man who stands by his convictions, who protects the vulnerable, who treats everyone with equal respect. The children see that. They learn from it." "I'm no role model." "Tell that to young Miguel Martinez, who follows you around like a shadow. Or to the Chen boys who've started standing straighter because you taught them to shoot as well as any white boy. Or to—" Luke kissed her to stop the litany. "All right, I take your point. Good. Because I have plans for you." "Why does that terrify me?" "Because you're a smart man. December brought a blizzard that trapped everyone at home for 3 days. But this year, Anna wasn't walking into the storm alone and desperate. She was safe in her home with her husband, planning their child's future. "If it's a boy, I'd like to name him Thomas," she said one evening as they watched the snow fall. Luke nodded. "And if it's a girl?" "Sarah." Luke's breath caught. "Anna, you don't have to—" "I want to. We're not running from our ghosts anymore, remember? We're honoring them while building something new." "Sarah or Thomas Harrison," Luke said softly. "Born free." Born free, Anna agreed. When the storm cleared, they found unexpected visitors at their gate. A wagon train of 4 families lost and desperate, their leader dead from fever, their supplies running low. Please, a woman begged, holding a baby that couldn't have been more than 6 months old. We just need shelter for a few days' time to figure out where we are. Luke looked at Anna, who was already ushering the frozen families inside. Looks like we're running a hotel now, too, he said dryly, but he was already helping unload their wagons. The families were German immigrants speaking little English, carrying everything they owned in those wagons. They'd been heading for California but had gotten lost when their guide died. We can pay, the woman Greta, they learned, insisted. Not much, but keep your money, Anna said, ladling soup into bowls. But if you want to work for your keep, we can use help with the cattle. Over the next week, as the German families recovered, something unexpected happened. They didn't want to leave. The men were skilled farmers who saw potential in Luke's land. The women were hard workers who took to Anna immediately, not caring about her reputation because they didn't know she had one to lose. We could stay, Greta suggested tentatively. Build homes, work the land shares. In Germany, we were tenants. Here we could be partners. Luke and Anna exchanged glances. The ranch was successful, but not wealthy. Extra hands would help, but it would also mean sharing what little they had. We'll think about it, Luke said. That night, as they discussed the proposition, Anna said, "It's what this place needs. New blood, new ideas, people who don't know or care about our past. It's a risk. We don't know them. We didn't know each other when you pulled me from that storm." That was different. Was it, "You took a chance on a desperate woman with nothing. Now we have the chance to help desperate families with everything to lose." Luke studied his wife, her belly round with child, her face glowing with purpose, her spirit unbroken despite everything she'd endured. "When did you become the one making all the decisions?" "The moment you gave me the freedom to," Anna replied, kissing him. "Besides, someone needs to make decisions while you're brooding dramatically in corners." "I don't brood dramatically." "You absolutely do. It's very attractive, but not very practical." They kept the German families on parceling out land for homes, sharing resources and labor. By Christmas, the Double H Ranch had become something unprecedented in the valley, a cooperative where race, nationality, and past didn't matter, only hard work and mutual respect. The town watched with a mixture of amazement and concern. This wasn't how things were done in Wyoming. Ranches were owned by single families, worked by hired hands who knew their place. This mixing of classes and colors, this elevation of outcasts to landowners, it threatened the established order. "You're playing with fire," Sheriff Morrison warned Luke during a trip to town. "The other ranchers don't like what you're doing." "They didn't like me before either," Luke pointed out. "This is different. You're showing their workers that there's another way. That's dangerous thinking." "Good," Luke echoed Anna's earlier words. "This valley needs dangerous thinking." On Christmas Eve, the entire extended community of the Double H gathered in the barn, transformed for the occasion with lanterns and pine boughs. Germans, Mexicans, Chinese, Irish, former slaves, and 2 stubborn Americans who'd started it all, they came together to celebrate not just Christmas, but survival, freedom, and hope. Pete Sober and Dignified read from Dickens. The German families sang carols from their homeland. Tom Martinez played guitar, while his wife taught everyone a Mexican dance. Lily Chen had somehow managed to make cookies that combined Chinese and American traditions, creating something entirely new and delicious. Anna, now heavily pregnant, watched from a chair Luke had insisted she sit in despite her protests that she wasn't an invalid. She looked around at this unlikely family they'd created and felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "What's wrong?" Luke asked, immediately concerned. "Nothing. Everything's perfect. That's why I'm crying." He kissed her forehead. "Pregnant women are mysterious creatures." "All women are mysterious creatures. Pregnancy just gives us an excuse to show it." As midnight approached, Anna stood with Luke's help to address the gathering. "A year ago," she began, "I was walking into a blizzard to die, cast out and alone. Tonight I stand here surrounded by family, not the family I was born to, but the family we've chosen and built together. Each of you has your own story of loss, rejection, survival. But here those stories don't define us. Here we define ourselves. To the double H, Tom Martinez raised his glass. To freedom, the German families chorused. To new beginnings, Pete added. To family, Luke said quietly, his hand on Anna's belly. As they toasted, Anna felt a sharp pain. She gripped Luke's arm and his face went white. The baby, he asked. I think, yes, the baby's coming. The barn erupted in organized chaos. The women immediately took charge, ushering Anna to the house, while sending men for water towels, and the Chinese midwife who lived 2 valleys over but wouldn't make it in time. I'm scared, but Anna admitted to Luke as another contraction hit. You faced down Frank Clayton with a gun to your head. You survived a blizzard. You took on the entire town. None of those things were trying to come out of my body. Anna gasped. Lily Chen took charge with quiet authority, having delivered babies in California before coming to Wyoming. You strong, she told Anna firmly. Stronger than you know. For hours, Anna labored Luke beside her, despite Lily's attempts to banish him to the traditional male waiting area. I'm not leaving her, he said flatly, and something in his tone made Lily nod and accept his presence. As dawn broke on Christmas morning, Sarah Louise Harrison entered the world screaming and perfect. She had her mother's red gold hair and her father's gray eyes, and she was absolutely the most beautiful thing either of them had ever seen. She's perfect, Luke whispered, holding his daughter for the first time. She's free, Anna corrected, exhausted but triumphant. Born free on Christmas morning. Word of the birth spread quickly. By noon, gifts were arriving not from the town's elite, but from the community they'd built. Hand-sewn blankets, carved toys, preserved foods for the new mother. Each gift simple, but given with genuine love. Even Martha came standing uncertainly at the door until Anna beckoned her in. She's beautiful, Martha said, looking at the baby. Thomas would have been so proud. Thomas is part of why she exists, Anna said softly. His love gave me strength to survive until I found my way here. Martha's eyes filled with tears. May I hold her? Anna nodded, and Martha took the baby with practiced ease, a mother herself 3 times over. Hello, little Sarah, Martha whispered. You're born to quite a legacy. Your mother is the bravest woman I know, and your father is the strongest man. You'll never have to be afraid of anything. As Martha handed the baby back, she pressed something into Anna's hand, a small gold locket. It was Thomas's mother's, Martha explained. He wanted you to have it, but Samuel, well, it belongs with you now, with her. After Martha left, Anna opened the locket. Inside was a tiny photograph of Thomas young and healthy, smiling the way she remembered him before the sickness. You all right? Luke asked, seeing her tears. Yes. It's just circles completing, Thomas's legacy living on not through blood, but through the freedom his death ultimately gave me to find you, to build this, to have her. Luke wrapped his arms around his wife and daughter. No looking back. Only forward, Anna agreed. Always forward. As the day wore on, more visitors came. Sheriff Morrison bringing an unexpected gift. Official documentation making the Double H School a recognized institution with Pete as its certified teacher. Don't know how you managed this, Luke said, amazed. I didn't. Word reached the territorial governor about what you're doing here. He's interested in promoting Wyoming as a place of opportunity for all. Your school, your cooperative, it fits his vision. Political winds change, Luke warned. Maybe, but right now they're blowing in your favor. Make the most of it. That evening, as Anna nursed Sarah while Luke read aloud from one of his books, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. From the depths of grief and desperation to this moment of perfect contentment. What are you thinking? Luke asked, setting aside the book. About how the worst day of my life led to the best, Anna said. If Thomas hadn't died, if Samuel hadn't cast me out, if that blizzard hadn't come, we never would have found each other. Or ourselves, Anna added. I would have remained the dutiful widow, you the grieving widower, safe but not truly alive. And now, Anna looked at their daughter, at this man she loved, with a fierce, free love she'd never known was possible at the home they'd built and the community they'd created. Now we're alive, fully, completely, freely alive. A knock at the door interrupted them. Luke opened it to find a young woman, perhaps 20, standing in the snow. She was well-dressed but travel-worn, and her eyes held a desperate, familiar look. "Please," she said. "I need help. My husband died, and his family, they want me to marry his brother. I ran, but I have nowhere to go. Someone in town said you might—" Anna rose, still holding Sarah, and walked to the door. She saw herself a year ago in this young woman's face, the fear, the determination, the desperate hope. "Come in," Anna said simply. "You're safe here." The woman's composure cracked, and she began to cry. "Thank you. I didn't know where else to turn." "What's your name?" Anna asked, guiding her to the fire. Margaret Foster." "Well, Margaret Foster, welcome to the Double H Ranch. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. Tonight you're warm, safe, and free." As Luke prepared food for their unexpected guest, Anna settled Margaret in the same chair where she'd sat that first night, wrapped in the same quilts that had warmed her frozen body. "It gets better," Anna told her quietly. "I know it doesn't seem like it now, but it gets better." "How?" Margaret asked through her tears. "By choosing to survive, by refusing to be owned, by finding people who see you as human, not property." Anna shifted Sarah to one arm and took Margaret's hand with the other. "By learning that you're stronger than you ever imagined." Later, after Margaret was settled in the foreman's cabin, Anna's old refuge now serving another desperate woman, Luke and Anna stood together at their window, watching snow begin to fall again. "We're really doing this," Luke said, "building a haven for the lost and rejected." "Is that all right?" Anna asked, though she knew his answer. "It's perfect. We're taking our pain and turning it into purpose." "Like you did for me. Like we did for each other." Sarah stirred in her cradle, making the soft sounds of a contented baby. Outside, snow continued to fall, but inside, three souls who'd found each other against all odds were warm, safe, and free. "I love you." Anna said suddenly, the words still new enough to feel momentous. "I love you too," Luke replied, pulling her close. "My brave, beautiful, unbreakable wife." "We're all unbreakable," Anna said, thinking of everyone who'd found refuge at the Double H. "We just needed to be reminded of it." As the year turned toward its end, the Double H Ranch stood as more than just a successful cooperative. It was a symbol of possibility, a challenge to the established order, and most importantly, a home for those who'd been told they deserved none. The transformation was remarkable. Where once there had been a failing ranch and two broken people, now there was a thriving community. The German families had built sturdy homes and started planting spring crops. The school had grown to 25 students, with Pete teaching alongside Lily Chen, who taught arithmetic using an abacus that fascinated all the children. Tom Martinez had become Luke's unofficial foreman, his knowledge of cattle proving invaluable. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation was in Anna herself. The desperate widow who'd walked into a blizzard had become a force of nature. She managed the ranch's books, coordinated the school, organized the cooperative's resources, and did it all while caring for a newborn. She moved through her days with a confidence that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "You've changed," Luke observed one evening as Anna reviewed plans for expanding the school. "We've both changed." "Yes, but you've become who you were always meant to be." Anna considered this. "Thomas loved me, but he kept me small. Safe, but small. You've let me grow as big as I dare. Not let, encouraged, demanded even. And I've demanded the same of you. Look at you from hermit to community leader." Luke groaned. "Don't remind me. I was perfectly happy being a misanthrope." "No, you weren't. You were dying slowly just like I was. We saved each other from that death." As if to underscore the point, Sarah chose that moment to wake crying for milk. Anna lifted her daughter, settling into the rhythm of feeding that was becoming second nature. "She'll never know," Anna said softly. "She'll never know what it's like to be told she can't do something because she's a woman, to be treated as property, to have her choices made for her. She'll face other challenges. Yes, but she'll face them free. That makes all the difference." The spring thaw came early that year, turning the paths to mud and bringing the first green shoots through the melting snow. Sarah was 3 months old now, a bright-eyed baby who seemed to watch everything with an intensity that reminded Luke of her mother. Margaret Foster had stayed through the winter, working alongside Anna in managing the growing community, her own tragedy, transforming into purpose. It was on one of these muddy spring mornings that a familiar figure appeared at the ranch gate. Anna recognized the horse before she recognized the rider, Dusty Thomas's horse, the one she'd had to leave behind when she fled the Whitfield ranch. Samuel sat atop the animal, but he was barely recognizable. His once proud bearing was gone, replaced by the stoop of a broken man. His clothes hung loose on his frame, and his hands shook as he dismounted. "Anna," he said, his voice rough with disuse or drink, probably both. Luke emerged from the barn, rifle in hand, but Anna raised a hand to stop him. "What do you want, Samuel?" "Martha's dead, he said flatly. "Pneumonia. Died 2 weeks ago." Despite everything, Anna felt a pang of sorrow. Martha had tried in the end to make amends. "I'm sorry for your loss." Samuel laughed bitter and hollow. "Are you—" "She came here, told me about it afterward, said you forgave her, said you were happy." He swayed slightly on his feet. "How can you be happy? You lost everything." "I lost nothing that mattered," Anna replied, "and gained everything that did." Samuel's bloodshot eyes took in the ranch, the new buildings, the children playing in the schoolyard, the obvious prosperity. "This should have been Thomas's." "This is Thomas's legacy," Anna corrected. "His death freed me to become who I was meant to be. I think he knew that at the end. I think that's why he tried to protect me from you. I was protecting the family name. You were protecting your own interests. There's a difference." Anna shifted Sarah in her arms. "Why are you really here, Samuel?" He pulled a rolled document from his coat with shaking hands. "The ranch, the Whitfield ranch. I'm signing it over to you." Luke stepped forward, suspicious. "What's the catch?" "No catch. I can't work it alone. My sons won't come home. They're ashamed of what I did. The hands have all quit. I've got nothing left." Samuel's voice broke. "I've got nothing left, and it's what I deserve." Anna took the document, scanning it quickly. It was legitimate, a transfer of deed for the entire Whitfield property. The ranch where she'd lived with Thomas, where she'd nursed him through his illness, where she'd been cast out into the snow. "I don't want it," she said, handing it back. Samuel stared at her. "It's worth 10 times what this place is. And it's poisoned with bad memories. Keep it, sell it, let it rot. I don't care. My life is here now." "Anna, think about this," Luke said quietly. "That land could help a lot of people." She turned to him, seeing the strategic mind at work. The Whitfield ranch bordered the Double H. Combined, they'd control water rights for the entire valley. They could expand the cooperative, bring in more families. "Not the house," she said finally. "I won't live in that house again." "We could tear it down," Luke suggested. "Build something new, housing for more families, maybe another school." Anna looked at Samuel, this broken man who'd tried to destroy her and instead had freed her. "Why?" she asked. "Why give it to me?" "Because Thomas asked me to." Samuel admitted. "He made me promise if anything happened to Martha, if I had no heirs, the ranch would go to you. I broke every other promise I made to him. Maybe keeping this one will let me sleep." Anna was quiet for a long moment, Sarah gurgling contentedly in her arms. She thought about Thomas, about his gentle spirit, and his desperate attempts to protect her even as he lay dying. She thought about Martha carrying her guilt to the grave. She thought about the families who could use that land, the children who could run free across those pastures. "All right," she said, "but there are conditions. Anything. You leave Wyoming, tonight. You never come back. You never contact me again. As far as anyone knows, you died with Martha." Samuel flinched but nodded. "Where will I go?" "That's not my concern. You made your choices, Samuel. Now live with them somewhere else." As Samuel turned to leave, he paused. "The baby, is it?" "She's Luke's daughter. She's a Harrison. She has nothing to do with the Whitfields, except the land she'll help work." Samuel mounted Dusty. No, Anna realized he was leaving the horse. He was walking away. "Take care of him," he said, nodding at the animal. "Thomas loved that horse." "I know." She watched Samuel walk down the road until he disappeared into the distance, carrying nothing but the clothes on his back. Luke came to stand beside her, Sarah reaching for her father with chubby fingers. You could have been crueler, he observed. What would be the point? He's already destroyed himself more thoroughly than I ever could. And now we have double the land. Double the responsibility, Anna corrected, but also double the opportunity. Within a week, they'd organized work crews to begin renovating the Whitfield Ranch. The main house would indeed be torn down, its lumber repurposed for new cabins. The barn would be converted into a second school. The pastures would be divided among new families seeking the same freedom Anna had found. It was during this renovation that they made an unexpected discovery. While tearing down the main house, Tom Martinez found a hidden compartment in Thomas's study. Inside were journals, dozens of them dating back years. Anna sat in her kitchen reading her late husband's words by lamplight while Luke tended to Sarah. "Listen to this one," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Anna grows more beautiful each day, not in appearance, though she remains lovely, but in spirit. I see her tending the garden, singing to the chickens, and I know I'm dying. The cough grows worse. Blood comes more frequently. I haven't told her how bad it is. I can't bear to see fear replace the joy in her eyes." Luke moved behind her, reading over her shoulder as she continued. "I should have been stronger, should have stood up to Samuel, insisted on provisions for her. But I'm a coward, using what little strength I have left just to breathe. I pray someone will save her when I'm gone. Someone stronger than me. Someone who can give her the life she deserves, freedom, choice, respect. Things I promised but failed to deliver." Anna's tears dropped onto the pages, blurring Thomas's careful handwriting. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew what would happen." "He loved you the best way he knew how," Luke said gently. "It wasn't enough." "No, but it led you here. Maybe that was his final gift, setting you free to find something more." Anna closed the journal and stood moving into Luke's arms. "I loved him, you know. Despite everything, I loved him. I know, just like I loved Sarah, but that love was different, safer, smaller. What we have isn't safe." Anna agreed, pulling back to look at him. "It's wild and difficult and sometimes terrifying. But it's real, and it's free." "Yes," Anna said, kissing him deeply. "It's free." As spring progressed into summer, the expanded Double H Ranch became something unprecedented in Wyoming territory, a fully functioning cooperative where ownership was shared, decisions were democratic, and everyone's voice mattered. The territorial governor himself came to visit, bringing reporters from as far as Chicago. "This is remarkable," the governor said, touring the facilities with Anna and Luke. "You've created a model for integration and cooperation that could transform the West." "We've created a home," Anna corrected, "for people who had none." The reporters were particularly interested in Anna's story, the widow who'd refused to be sold, who'd built an empire from nothing. But Anna declined most interviews, letting the work speak for itself. "I'm not a symbol," she told one persistent journalist. "I'm just a woman who chose freedom over security. Thousands of women would make the same choice if they could." "But they can't," the journalist pressed. "Most women don't have your courage. Most women don't have a Luke Harrison to catch them when they fall," Anna replied, causing her husband to flush with embarrassment. It was Margaret Foster who became the unexpected spokesperson for their community. Her education, she'd been a teacher before marriage, and her gift for words made her ideal for handling the press and the increasing correspondence from women seeking refuge. "We're getting 3 letters a day," Margaret reported one evening. "Women in situations like mine, like Anna's. They want to know if we can help them." "Can we?" Luke asked, ever practical. "We have the land now," Anna pointed out. "And the infrastructure. The question is whether we want to become what a refuge for runaway wives Why not?" Margaret challenged. "You were a runaway wife, so was I. Why shouldn't we help others like us?" "Because it will bring trouble," Luke warned. "Angry husbands, legal challenges." "Let them come." Anna interrupted, her eyes fierce. "We've faced worse and survived." They established guidelines. Women seeking refuge had to be willing to work to contribute to the community, to respect the diverse population they'd be joining. They couldn't accommodate everyone, but they could help some. It was a start. The first woman arrived in June, escaping an abusive husband in Colorado. Then 2 sisters from Kansas, fleeing arranged marriages. By July, they'd integrated 6 new women into the community, each bringing skills and determination born from desperation. "You're building an army," Sheriff Morrison observed during one of his visits. "We're building a future," Anna corrected. "One where women aren't property, where children of all colors learn together, where a person's worth isn't determined by their birth, but by their character." "That's a dangerous future for some people." "Good. But not everyone appreciated what they were building." The established ranchers, watching their workers leave for better opportunities at the Double H, began to organize opposition. They couldn't use violence, the governor's protection prevented that, but they could use economics. "They're trying to block our cattle sales," Tom reported after a trip to the stockyards. "Telling buyers our beef is diseased, that we're mixing inferior Mexican cattle with good American stock." "Are the buyers listening?" Luke asked. "Some. We lost 2 contracts this week." Anna stood from where she'd been nursing Sarah, handing the baby to Margaret. "Then we bypass them. We sell directly to the Army posts. I heard Fort Laramie needs suppliers." "The Army doesn't usually buy from cooperatives," Luke pointed out. "The Army buys from whoever provides quality beef at fair prices. And I happen to know the new quartermaster's wife. She wrote to us last month about sending her daughter here to escape a forced marriage." Luke smiled slowly. "You've been planning this." "I've been preparing for possibilities. There's a difference." The meeting with the quartermaster went better than expected. Not only did Fort Laramie agree to buy their beef, but 2 other forts expressed interest. The established ranchers had inadvertently pushed the Double H into a more profitable market. "You have a gift," Luke told Anna as they rode home from the successful negotiation. "You see 3 moves ahead like in chess." "I learned from a good teacher." "You've surpassed the teacher." "In strategy, maybe. But you still beat me at actual chess half the time." 40% of the time, Luke corrected. "And dropping." They were laughing as they arrived home, but their mirth died when they saw who was waiting for them. Judge Harlan from Laramie, the one who'd presided over Anna's trial, stood on their porch with several official-looking men. "Mr. Harrison, Mrs. Harrison," the judge said formally, "we need to discuss some legal matters. Concerning—" Luke's hand moved subtly toward his sidearm. "Concerning the legitimacy of your marriage, and consequently your wife's claim to partial ownership of this ranch." Anna felt ice in her veins, but her voice remained steady. "Our marriage is legal, performed by Professor Hutchinson, licensed by the territory." "Performed by a drunk," one of the officials corrected, "who may not have been legally authorized to conduct marriages." "Pete's been sober for 8 months, Anna protested. "Now, perhaps. But in December," the judge produced a document. "We have witnesses saying he was intoxicated during the ceremony." It was a lie, and everyone knew it. But if enough people swore to it, if enough money changed hands— "What do you want?" Luke asked bluntly. "Some concerned citizens feel this experiment has gone too far. Integration is one thing, but a cooperative that undermines traditional values. Women abandoning their lawful husbands. Children being taught radical ideas." "You mean free ideas," Anna said coldly. "I mean dangerous ideas. However," the judge continued, "if you were to restructure, make Mr. Harrison sole owner, stop accepting runaway wives, separate the schools by race—" "No," Anna's voice was flat final. "Then we'll have to investigate the validity of your marriage. And if it's found invalid, your ownership claim is void. The ranch would revert to Mr. Harrison alone, and you, Mrs. Excuse me, Miss Whitfield would be guilty of moral turpitude, living with a man unmarried bearing a child out of wedlock." "You bastard!" Luke snarled, stepping forward, but Anna caught his arm. "Give us 3 days," she said calmly. 3 days to consider your proposal." The judge smiled, thinking he'd won. 3 days, but no more runaway wives in the meantime. After they left, Luke exploded. "We're not giving in to their blackmail. Of course not. But we need those 3 days to prepare." "Prepare for what?" Anna's smile was sharp as a blade. "To beat them at their own game. Margaret, send telegrams to every newspaper that's written about us. Tell them there's going to be a story worth printing. Tom ride to Fort Laramie. Tell the quartermaster's wife what's happening. Pete, I need you to find every document related to your licensing, no matter how old. What are you planning? Luke asked. A wedding, Anna replied. A very public, very legal, very politically significant wedding. 3 days later, the Double H Ranch hosted the largest gathering in Valley history. The territorial governor was there ostensibly for a ranch tour. The quartermaster from Fort Laramie attended with his wife and daughter. Reporters from Denver, Cheyenne, and Chicago mingled with the crowd. And at the center of it all stood Anna and Luke preparing to remarry. Is this really necessary? Luke muttered, uncomfortable in his best suit. Legal theater requires proper staging, Anna murmured back, radiant, and addressed the women of the cooperative had sewn together white silk traded from the Chinese family's lace, from the Germans embroidered with Mexican patterns. It was a dress that told their entire story. The governor himself performed the ceremony, his authority unquestionable. But before the vows, Anna turned to address the crowd. We stand here today not just to affirm our marriage, but to affirm our principles. There are those who say a woman cannot own land, cannot make choices, cannot stand equal with a man. They say integration is dangerous, that education should be limited, that freedom is a threat to tradition. Her voice carried clear and strong. They're right about one thing: we are a threat to tradition. The tradition of oppression, of limitation, of fear. She looked directly at Judge Harlan, who stood at the edge of the crowd, his face purple with rage. So yes, we remarry today with the highest authority in the territory as our witness. And we recommit not just to each other, but to this community, this experiment in freedom that terrifies those who profit from others' bondage. The crowd erupted in applause, led by the women who'd found refuge here. The judge tried to leave, but found his way blocked by Tom Martinez and his sons, who smiled with dangerous politeness. Wouldn't want you to miss the ceremony, Judge, Tom said mildly. The governor performed the wedding with deliberate formality, emphasizing the legal nature of the union. When Luke kissed Anna, the cheer that went up could probably be heard in Bitter Creek. But Anna wasn't done. As the crowd celebrated, she climbed onto a makeshift platform. Judge Harlan came here 3 days ago with a threat, she announced, causing the crowd to quiet. He said our marriage was invalid, our principles dangerous, our community a threat to traditional values. The judge tried again to leave, but now reporters surrounded him, notebooks ready. He offered us a deal: conform or be destroyed. Anna's voice rose. Our answer is this: we will not conform. We will not step back. We will not abandon those who seek refuge here. She pulled out a document, the deed to the combined ranches newly registered. As of today, the Double H Ranch is held in trust, not by Luke and me alone, but by a board of directors drawn from this community. Mexican, Chinese, German, Irish, Negro, and yes, American, men and women alike. This ranch is no longer ours. It belongs to all who work it, all who've built it all, who've found freedom here. The crowd exploded. This was beyond integration, beyond cooperation. This was revolution. Judge Harlan finally found his voice. This is illegal property, cannot be held. Actually, it can, the governor interrupted smoothly. The territorial legislature passed a law last month allowing collective ownership structures. Mrs. Harrison sent a very persuasive letter. Several legislators' wives added their support. You planned this, the judge accused Anna. I planned for possibilities, Anna replied. Just as I planned for the reporters to be here when you tried your blackmail. Just as I planned for the governor to witness our remarriage. Just as I planned for the quartermaster's wife to tell her husband about your threats to our military contracts. The quartermaster stepped forward. Any interference with our suppliers will be considered an attack on Army provisions. That's federal crime, Judge. Harlan looked around wildly, realizing he was trapped. You can't do this. We just did, Luke said, moving to stand beside his wife. And if you or anyone else tries to destroy what we've built, you'll face not just us, but the entire community. And as you can see, it's a large community. The judge fled, followed by the laughter of the crowd and the scratching of reporters' pens. The story would be in every major Western newspaper within a week. The cooperative that couldn't be broken. The woman who couldn't be owned. The community that chose freedom over tradition. That night, as the celebration continued outside, Anna and Luke stole a moment alone in their bedroom, Sarah sleeping peacefully in her cradle. You terrify me sometimes, Luke said, but he was smiling. The way your mind works, the plans within plans. I learned from necessity, Anna replied. When you have no power, you learn to think around those who do. You have power now. We have power, together. All of us. Luke pulled her close, marveling at this woman who'd walked out of a blizzard and into his life, transforming everything she touched. No regrets? He asked, as he had so many times before. None? Anna replied, as she always did, but then she added something new. How could I regret the path that led me to you, to this, to her? She glanced at Sarah. To freedom. Even the pain, Thomas's death, the casting out, the persecution. Anna was quiet for a moment. Pain is the price of growth. Thomas's death broke me open, but that breaking let light in. Being cast out forced me to find my strength. The persecution taught me to fight. Without all of that, I'd still be the dutiful wife in a comfortable cage. And now I'm a wild thing, Anna said with a fierce smile, untamed and untamable. Good, Luke said, kissing her deeply. I wouldn't have you any other way. As summer turned to autumn, the Double H Cooperative, as it was now known, became a symbol of progressive change in the West. Other communities began adopting their models, integrated schools, collective ownership refuge programs for women. Anna received letters from women across the country, thanking her for showing them what was possible. You've become famous, Margaret said, sorting through the mail one afternoon. We've become famous, Anna corrected, bouncing Sarah on her knee. This wasn't built by one person. No, but you're the face of it, the widow who refused to surrender. Anna considered this. Fame had never been her goal, survival had. Then thriving, then helping others do the same. But if her story inspired other women to choose freedom over security, perhaps fame was another tool to wield. There's an invitation here, Margaret continued. From the Territorial Women's Suffrage Association, they want you to speak at their convention. About what? About everything. Your story, the cooperative, the school. They're calling you a model for women's independence. Luke looked up from where he was playing with Sarah on the floor. You should go. It would mean leaving the ranch for a week. The ranch will survive. And think of the connections you could make, the support you could build for what we're doing here. Anna looked around the room at Luke, her partner in everything, at Margaret, who'd become like a sister, at Sarah, who would grow up never knowing that women could be property. Then she looked out the window at the thriving community they'd built. Children of all colors playing together. Women working alongside men as equals, families who'd been outcasts now standing proud. All right, she said, I'll go, but I'm taking Sarah. Let them see that a mother can also be a revolutionary. The convention was held in Cheyenne, the territorial capital. Anna arrived expecting to be one speaker among many, but found herself treated as the guest of honor. Her story had spread far beyond Wyoming, the widow who'd fought the entire establishment, and one who'd built a cooperative that challenged every traditional power structure. Ladies, Anna began her speech looking out at hundreds of eager faces. I stand before you not as a symbol or a hero, but as a woman who was given an impossible choice, surrender or starve, and chose a third option, fight. She told them everything: Thomas's death, the casting out, the blizzard, Luke's rescue. But more importantly, she told them about the building, the community, the transformation of pain into power. We cannot wait for men to give us freedom, she said, her voice rising with passion. We must take it, create it, demand it. We must build our own structures, our own support systems, our own definitions of what it means to be a woman in this world. The applause was thunderous. Women approached her afterward with their own stories of abuse, abandonment, resilience. Many wanted to come to the Double H, though Anna had to explain their limitations. We can't save everyone, she said to one desperate woman, but we can show everyone that saving themselves is possible. It was during this convention that Anna met Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the famous suffragist who'd been fighting for women's rights for decades. You've done something remarkable, Stanton told her. You've shown that women's rights aren't just about voting. They're about economic independence, educational access, the right to choose your own path. I've just lived my life the only way I could. Exactly. And in doing so, you've created a model for others. The Double H Cooperative is being discussed in Washington. There's talk of federal protection for such enterprises. Talk is cheap, Anna said pragmatically. Stanton laughed. Spoken like a true frontier woman, but talk leads to action eventually, and your actions have started important conversations. When Anna returned to the ranch, she found it transformed yet again. In her absence, Luke and the others had built a meeting hall, a proper gathering place for the growing community. "Welcome home," Luke said, pulling her into his arms, while Sarah squealed with delight at being squished between her parents. "What's all this? We decided if we're going to be a model community, we need a place for the community to meet. Town hall, school auditorium, dance hall, whatever we need it to be." "It's perfect," Anna said, then noticed something else. Is that a newspaper office?" "Margaret's idea. The Valley Voice, she's calling it. Figured if others are going to tell our story, we might as well tell it ourselves." Anna laughed, delighted. "A newspaper? Of course. What's next, our own government?" "Don't give them ideas," Luke warned, but he was smiling. That evening, the entire community gathered in the new hall for its inaugural event, a harvest celebration. The tables groaned with food from every culture represented, languages mixed freely, and children ran between the adults without regard for the social boundaries that would have separated them anywhere else. Anna stood with Luke watching it all, Sarah now toddling between them on increasingly steady legs. "She's walking," Anna exclaimed as Sarah took 3 independent steps before plopping down on her bottom. "She's been practicing while you were gone," Luke said proudly. "Determined little thing, like her mother." Old Pete approached, surprisingly spry for his age and circumstances. "Anna, Luke, I have news. The Territorial Board of Education wants to officially recognize our school. Full accreditation. Our students could go on to university if they choose." "Pete, that's wonderful." "It's because of you," Pete said to Anna. "Your speech in Cheyenne, the attention you've brought. Doors are opening that were locked before." As the evening progressed, Anna found herself watching the dancers, German couples teaching Mexican couples their traditional steps. Chinese children learning Irish jigs, former slaves dancing alongside former slave owners' daughters who'd fled forced marriages. It was beautiful and chaotic and impossible, yet here it was real and thriving. "Penny for your thoughts," Luke said, joining her on the hall's porch. "I was thinking about Thomas," Anna admitted. "He would be amazed by all this." "Would he be proud?" Anna considered. I think he'd be proud that I survived. But this," she gestured at the integrated celebration, "this would have terrified him. He was a good man, but he was traditional. He believed in boundaries and proper places for people. And you don't. I believe in freedom, in choice, in the radical idea that every person deserves to determine their own path, even when that path is difficult. Especially then, the easy path rarely leads anywhere worth going." A commotion from inside drew their attention. A new arrival, a black woman with 3 children looking exhausted and frightened. "Please," she said to the first person she saw. "We were told. They said you help people." Anna moved forward immediately. "You're safe here. What's your name?" "Ruth. Ruth Washington. These are my children. We escaped from Texas, but the men following us are no longer your concern," Luke said firmly. "You're on Double H land now. We protect our own." As they settled Ruth and her children, finding them food and shelter, Anna reflected on how natural this had become, taking in the desperate, offering hope to the hopeless. "We can't save everyone," Margaret said, echoing Anna's words from the convention. "No," Anna agreed, "but we save who we can, and each person we save might save others in turn." The year turned toward winter again, but this time Anna faced it without fear. The cooperative was thriving with enough food and fuel stored for everyone. The school had 40 students now, with Pete and 2 assistant teachers. The newspaper Margaret ran had subscribers across the territory. And Sarah was walking, talking, growing into a fierce little soul who approached life with the same determination as her mother. "Mama, up," Sarah demanded one morning, raising her arms to be lifted. Anna scooped her up, marveling at this little person she and Luke had created. "You're getting heavy, little one." "Not little," Sarah protested. "Big. Yes, you're very big," Anna agreed, kissing her daughter's cheek. Luke entered from outside, bringing the cold and the smell of hay with him. "Rider's coming. Looks official." Anna's stomach tightened. Official visitors rarely brought good news. She handed Sarah to Luke and went to meet them. But for once, the news was good. The territorial governor himself had come bringing papers that would change everything. "Mrs. Harrison," he said, dismounting, "I have something for you. For all of you, really." He handed her a sealed document. Anna opened it, read it, then read it again, unable to believe what she was seeing. "Federal protection," she whispered. "More than that. Federal recognition as an experimental community under the Homestead Act expansion, tax benefits, legal protection, and what?" He smiled, "immunity from local interference as long as you remain law-abiding." "How?" "Your friend, Mrs. Stanton, has powerful connections, and your story has reached Washington. There are those who see the Double H as a model for Reconstruction, not just in the South, but across the country. Integration, education, women's rights. You're living proof these things can work." Anna felt Luke's hand on her shoulder, steady and supportive as always. "There are conditions," the governor continued. "Regular reports to Washington, hosting federal observers, maintaining detailed records of your methods and results." "We can do that," Anna said immediately. "I thought you might say that." The governor looked around at the thriving community. "You've built something remarkable here, Mrs. Harrison. Something that might change the country." "We've built a home," Anna corrected. "A home for those who had none." That night, as the community celebrated their new protected status, Anna stood where she always stood when she needed to think at the window, looking out at the land that had become her salvation. "Come to bed," Luke said softly. "Tomorrow will bring its own challenges." "I know, I need a moment." He understood as he always did and gave her space. Anna pressed her hand against the cold glass, remembering another cold night, what felt like a lifetime ago. A desperate widow walking into a blizzard, choosing death over surrender. She could never have imagined this, standing in her own home on her own land with a husband who saw her as an equal, a daughter who would never know oppression, a community that had redefined what America could be. "Thank you," she whispered to Thomas's ghost, to Sarah's memory, to the God she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. "Thank you for the pain that led to this joy." A small hand tugged at her nightgown. Sarah had escaped her bed again, a regular occurrence. "Mama Sati?" the little girl asked. "No, baby. Mama's happy. So very happy." Sarah raised her arms, and Anna lifted her, holding her close. Luke joined them, wrapping his arms around both his girls. "Tell story." Sarah requested her favorite bedtime delay tactic. "What story would you like, Sam?" "Mama story. Snow story." Anna smiled. Sarah had heard it before, would hear it many times again, the story of a woman who walked into a blizzard with nowhere to go and found everything she never knew she wanted. "Once upon a time," Anna began, "there was a woman who thought she had lost everything." As she told the story edited for young ears, Anna realized it had become legend already, the kind of story that would be told long after she was gone, changed and embellished with each telling. But the heart of it would remain a woman. Chose freedom over security, dignity over comfort, struggle over surrender. And in choosing the harder path, she'd found not just survival, but transformation. Not just shelter, but home. Not just a man who saved her, but a partner who stood beside her as she saved herself. "And they lived happily ever after," Sarah asked sleepily, the traditional ending to all stories in her small world. Anna looked at Luke over their daughter's head, seeing her own thoughts reflected in his eyes. Happily ever after was too simple for what they had. They'd have struggles, conflicts, sorrows yet to come, but they'd face them together freely as equals. "They lived freely ever after," Anna corrected softly, "which is better than happy little one. Free is always better." Sarah was asleep before Anna finished speaking, safe in her mother's arms, in her father's protection, in a community that would raise her to believe anything was possible. Anna carried her to bed, Luke beside them, and as she tucked her daughter in, she felt the absolute certainty that every painful step had been worth it. The grief, the rejection, the fear, all of it had been the price of this moment, this life, this freedom. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be those who resented their federal protection, who saw their success as a threat. There would be more desperate souls seeking shelter more than they could possibly help. There would be setbacks and victories, sorrow and joy. But tonight, in a cabin that had become a symbol of possibility, a woman who'd refused to be owned lay beside a man who'd never tried to own her, their daughter safe between them, their community sleeping peacefully around them. The wind howled outside Wyoming, winter approaching with its familiar ferocity. But inside they were warm, they were safe, they were free. And that Anna thought, as sleep finally claimed her, was everything. That was the true breakthrough, not just love after winter, but love because of winter. The storms that had nearly destroyed her had instead revealed her strength. The man who'd pulled her from the snow had become the partner who stood beside her as she changed the world one small choice at a time. "Stay with me," Luke had whispered that first night, offering shelter to a desperate stranger. "Always," Anna whispered, now knowing that staying was no longer about shelter or necessity, but about choice. The choice to build something extraordinary with this complicated, wonderful man who'd seen her at her lowest and helped her rise to heights she'd never imagined possible. The Double H Ranch slept under the vast Wyoming sky, a beacon of hope in a harsh land, proof that from the deepest desperation could grow the strongest love, the fiercest freedom, and the most unbreakable community. And in the morning they would wake and continue building the future one free choice at a time.